agenda. Everybody get a chance to approve the consent agenda item?
Yep. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, any questions
Yeah, I can speak to
about any of the items? Discussion on any of the items? I did have one question on the field trip.
Econ.
Yeah, so the first question I had was, are they going to be playing there, or are they just going to be watching?
They will be playing there.
Okay.
As soon as we get to UConn, there's going to be a three-game rehearsal with a lot of different high schools and the UConn band, and then we perform on the field within the halftime. It's going to be a great time.
And I'm seeing just a small amount in the cost. Would that just be for the buses, or is that kind of what?
Yeah, that's just to help offset the cost for the bus. The bus was, the estimate is $600. So with 20 to 25 students that go, that'll cost GMPA the remainder.
Okay. I think it's a great way to learn too.
Absolutely.
Is UMass still doing the
They-
band day too?
They are. It is in November,
Okay.
around the Veteran Day weekend. And last year that was a really busy time for a lot of students. So out of the 22, only about 7 or 8 students ended up going.
Okay.
And for this to be at the September 7th, start of the school year, I think it's a great way to start the year off with a bang.
Cool.
Do you know when the last time the high school or the Granby band did something like this?
We went last year to UMass Band Day. That was at Gillette Stadium. And they've been going for, as far as I know, at least the last 3 years.
And I know even before that, I've been to UMass band days a few times. It's always good. It kind of died down at UMass. The gentleman who used to lead, he passed away during one of their trips, and then after that, it just changed a little bit. But it's been a tradition. Just before I forget, we have a Granby alum, or we had, who graduated, I think 3-4 years ago, John Schmeeding. He graduated from UConn Music School.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know if he's still there for a master's degree or something, but
What's his name?
John Schmeeding.
So if there's no further discussion, all those for?
Aye.
Yeah, and those against? Okay. Do you have any people, no visitor comments?
Do you mind if I ask a quick question? I assume, I looked at the calendar that you posted, and I made the assumption that was for our vote, and there was no change to it since we last saw it.
Right, it's in there because of the blizzard bag discussion, just so you have an idea of
Okay.
when we're starting the school year and when we're scheduled, if whatever the decision is tonight,
All right.
when the end of the school year would be, if we had to use snow days. That's the only reason I put it in there.
Okay.
No, it was my misunderstanding that snow on blizzard bags could go for this particular school year and then after that.
Yeah, and it's an agenda item, so we'll talk about it. Yep.
Sorry I'm late. I'm here.
Hi, Jen.
Yeah, hey,
Write that down.
that was pretty stealth.
There was nothing stealth about the way I just arrived.
All right, the next item is the student representative report. Do you have anything tonight?
Yeah. I want to start off with a question for the committee. How would you describe my role as a student representative?
If everybody at work asked me that question as the first question, I would be their biggest fan. So I am your fan right now. That's a great question. Do you mind if I take a shot at it? So the way we have, the first quick answer is, we don't have a written, defined role for the student reps. But what we have been telling each of our student reps and what we were expecting from them is for them, first of all, to be a liaison between the students and the school committee, which means what is happening that we should be aware of, that may be of interest, or that may require our action as a school committee. What are some of the things that we are not doing, but you guys think that we should be talking about related to the student life, student activities, or some things that, the schools are not doing yet that it may be a good idea for us to discuss or start discussing. We would like to hear from all of you, our students, to be able to do a lot of things that we are looking to do. I don't know if, were you able to share the strategic plan? I don't know if it's...
With Marcus?
Yeah, with Marcus.
Not yet,
Okay.
nope. But Marcus and I are gonna be meeting the Monday before.
Cool.
So if there's anything that the school committee would like, if they could get that to me, then Marcus and I are gonna spend some time.
Yeah. So we have this plan that says, here are the things that we would like to do in Granby Public Schools for the next few years. And all of those involve in one way or another our students, because everything that we do at the end is, to make sure that you guys receive a good education, you're in a safe, peaceful place, you have some of the activities that will enrich on top of the academics, your student life here. So for that reason, we would love to hear from you, your friends, the student body, to tell us how things are going. We try to do these surveys, but we don't, and I'm very happy to see that you are, that if our student representative is active, then we don't have to only rely on the surveys. We can find out what's going on, how things are going, how you're feeling, and what can we do to make it better, what actions we can take. But I don't think we should dismiss your initial question that there should be a well-defined role for the student representative, and we should work on that and get one done. In fact, probably we should enlist your help. We should ask you, what do you think, part of this role should be, and with all that input, we can put together a description.
Marcus, one of the things I'm going to say, just to sort of dovetail on what Emery was saying, is that when Jasmine came in, she sort of gave us a pulse of what was going on, like student council was getting ready for a dance or what was happening. We were talking a lot about blizzard bags, which is going to be a whole different conversation this time, and giving us the feedback after the first one, how it went, what students were thinking, just kind of a general overview of what you're hearing, sort of like, word on the street is this. There was controversy about the caffeine and how kids were feeling about that, so she was giving us updates on how that policy was implemented and how it's being felt, and a lot of it came from student council meetings, and then she was just talking to people. So just kind of what the word is and the pulse of what's like the student body.
And things that were happening in the school.
Yeah.
Like the dance, or Spirit Week.
Or getting ready for cotillion and the prom.
Yes,
and yeah.
okay. You're the person between the school committee and the high school committee.
You're just sort of the voice of the student.
And nothing is too big or too small.
Yeah. And thank you for asking that question. And you know that we only have time for one question.
Maybe a good one.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I had was just to say how the students have been continuing to be active outside of school during the summer. There has been a summer soccer team for boys and girls and basketball team. And these past 2 weeks were the Granby basketball camp, their basketball camp. And the first week, some of the students up to 10th grade could participate, and there was a fair number of us, not as much as past years, but still a good amount. And this week, we could volunteer to go and help out with the littler kids.
It's great. Are these all here at our schools? That's great. I mean, I remember Dare, that Andrew used to go, but I did not know that we were doing soccer too.
Just not for their camp anymore, but
Well, it's beyond that now.
yeah.
That's
like
good.
high school.
That's very good. Do you know how many students are participating? You don't have to know the exact number, but is it 10 more?
There's 20 kids on the basketball team, or the soccer team, and there is a good number of basketball too. I'm pretty sure most of the JV and varsity kids are playing basketball.
That's cool. I like that. Thank you for sharing that.
And Marcus, remind me, the DARE program, the basketball camp, is put on by the police department,
Yeah.
I believe? Okay, excellent. So working together with them, nice.
So that was it?
Yep.
Do you have any, somebody else wanted to ask him a question?
What else are you doing this summer?
Going on vacation.
Good. Enjoy your summer.
Thank you.
It's amazing that, you know, I see, was it back to school commercials already? You know, school ends and then
School
back.
supply shopping, advertisement, yep, yep.
Yeah,
Teachers getting their back to school supplies and staples and,
Right.
yep.
well,
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, now are you gonna be back in August, or are you just gonna wait until September at this point?
We'll see.
I like this.
I'm taking it out. My vacation is in August, so depending on when the meeting is.
Cool. That's good.
Okay, so then the next item is the, new business,
Yes.
so disposal of the furniture?
Yes, so we have several very old science lab tables, the kind with the sort of granite tops that have been like etched in, that we just need to make claim as disposable so that we can dispose of them and actually offer them to the community if they want them, or teachers, but they will be replaced with tables that are in better condition that we already have. We just need to claim them as disposable.
What do we have to do?
Just take a
Vote.
vote.
Was there a different way to use it across town or something?
That was our intention, would be to let the community know that they're available, so if somebody wanted to,
Oh, so, okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, good.
yep.
How long were we gonna hold on to them in case somebody wanted them before we made a determination?
I would say, my inkling is that they're gonna go because they're really, you know, they're perfect for like a garage or a workshop or, you know, something like that. It's just, we can't write on them anymore. You can imagine, you know, when they get kind of edgy, but they're great for like a workstation or something. So I would not anticipate them staying around long.
Okay. And we have a way to get the word out
Mhm.
to people? All right.
Yep.
Wanna make sure that that's done fairly so that it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so we need a vote? I guess all those in favor?
What, was there a motion?
Oh,
No motion. How many tables are there?
I believe there are 10,
10 tables.
up to 10. Mhm.
They served their time.
They have served their time well.
Probably been the original.
I think they were,
63.
but we couldn't trace them back that far.
That's what they are.
I'll make a motion to authorize the disposal of furniture from the junior, senior high school.
Second.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? All right. Next item is the Dean of Students.
So this is a position for East Meadow. As the East Meadow student body has grown, we've often been discussing the needs of those students and the changing needs of students. And so at the end of the school year, the instructional leadership team at East Meadow came to me and really sat down and tried to help me understand the need for an extra set of hands really to work with all students around behavior. We had worked hard on developing our social emotional learning program, hiring an additional adjustment counselor, but those people are really for higher level, higher need students. the ILT really discussed the need to have someone available to really work with all students and to create a sense of community around helping students shape behavior and culture and climate at East Meadow. So their recommendation, and I agree along with Bill, is to have a Dean of Students position. And the focus of that position would be students. It would not be an administrative position. It would not be a position for someone to evaluate teachers. It would be a teacher position, but focused on improving student behavior and culture and climate in the building. So I don't know if, Bill, you had anything more to add to that, or if there were any questions.
I have a question. So is it, first, was it in the budget that we had put forward?
It was not in the budget because it actually the discussion came after we had finalized the budget.
Okay.
So I did work with Adam. There is money in school choice, which is where we would initially fund that position. And then I think moving forward, it would be built into the local.
And then what's the difference between a dean of students and a vice principal?
So the basic difference would be the evaluation or the supervision of teachers. The assistant principal would have those roles. The dean of students would not. The other is typically an assistant principal has a longer work year. This would be a teacher work year.
So it's just you now, Bill, right? God bless you.
That's why he looks so tired. Not that you don't look great, Bill.
No, and when I came on board, if you remember, I replaced the two principals. There was a principal at East Meadow, there was a principal at West Street, and then since then, we've grown about 60 students or 65 students, I think, and two programs, the social emotional program and the autism support program. So, and a number of staff members. So it's really, you know, coming on board, I was nervous about taking on the two roles. I think it was great taking on those two roles and bringing the two buildings together and being one person in touch with both buildings and to do that. But I think it was a lot to ask one person to do all of that. And I think there were some things that I wasn't able to do as well as I could have if I had somebody to support me in that role.
And I'm gonna speak up here, but this person would not only be supportive to Mr. LaToy, they would be supporting teachers who often feel extremely frustrated with behaviors in the classroom that unfortunately, when Mr. LaToy is putting out a fire someplace else, can't get to. It's like, you know, Domino's, I can get to that, I go to the highest need one first. So with this being part of Unit A, and it will be, that's the teachers section of the contract, it makes a huge difference. It's school year. And as they said, this person, I'm not gonna say it's a threat, but that's, you know, they're not in there when they're disciplining or taking a child out of misbehavior, observing how the teacher is handling it. There's no evaluative part of it, which is important. If this dean of students is equal to the teachers and just there to support them, and especially Mr. LaToy, because I'm gonna tell you, when he's around the building dealing with behaviors, like this kid ran out of the classroom and so, now, you know, one behavior triggers another. While he's dealing with that, you've got other things that he can't get to. So as president of the Granby Association, this is something I am in favor of to support our staff.
And I think the other thing that, you know, we talked about at the ILT when they came to see me, really it's the idea of being proactive with students, creating a system where we're checking in with students before there's a problem, where there might be a time out of class with someone to take the kids before there's a problem, so that we're managing behaviors and really teaching kids about how to manage conflict, how to manage frustration before they become a tier 2 or a tier 3, where it's very intensive and they may actually be missing academic time as a result. And, you know, Bill's one person, and, you know, as Robin was saying, when you're putting out one fire, there's another fire going, and which do you try to get to? And a lot of times kids are waiting, and with the Dean of Students, I think we can get to more kids, and it will allow Bill really to focus on the instructional leadership side and the supervision and evaluation of staff, and really moving the curriculum side of things forward, so.
Is there a job description?
Not yet.
But I would hope that, I hate to hear about all the misbehaviors, but what else would we want this person to be able to do besides behavior? Or discipline?
Right, so a lot of what we're thinking is being very proactive in spaces where we know children have difficulty. So in the morning, being very active, maybe having groups at lunch, making sure that we're out and present so students know that there's an adult that they can go to that's going to help them manage. Having instructional groups around managing conflict, managing frustration. As kids get older, managing, conflict with teachers, and how does that work? How to be respectful and ask for what you need, how to communicate effectively. Again, being proactive and helping kids learn and develop those skills instead of having a behavior be the result of frustration or not able to handle their emotion or things like that.
I know this is jumping a gun, but are you looking at maybe, is there someone in-house that is interested in this kind of position, and what kind of bind does that put you in if it's a teacher already that's got to leave a classroom to do this?
Well,
In a short time here now, since it's almost August.
So one of the thoughts of keeping a unit A is that if there's a teacher in-house that wants to do it, they step up to do it, they're unit A. They don't lose anything by stepping up to do that. First of all, they keep their ranking in the union, they keep their seniority, they keep all of that. By coming forward now, it still gives us time to hopefully be able to find somebody, put them in that classroom. A couple people have mentioned they might be interested. There have been a few people that have said, yes, I think I might want to do it. But nobody really has committed, and said, definitely it's something that I think I want to do. The other benefit of a dean versus an assistant principal is there's no licensure requirement. So if there was somebody in there that wanted to do it, they could step up and do it. And there's lots of training. Desi has lots of networking. There's lots of availability for that piece of it. So I'm not too worried about that either. But it's that other piece of, it could be somebody that's on board, and you would hope maybe that there is a veteran teacher who knows the ins and outs and is willing to do that, rather than, you can't have somebody just walk in off the street out of college and say, I want to be your dean of students, because they're not going to understand where the needs are and what the needs are. One of my hopes is that this person can pick up the Peace Builder program and pick up the PBIS program and move it forward and be a big part of that, because that's where we're seeing our impact with student behavior and whatnot, and having assemblies monthly for that, and for the character traits and things like that, and really being able to move forward with all those things that, yeah, it's great to do it, but how do you find the time to do that?
Can I just ask, maybe you knew this before, but I came late, who was on the team that brought this recommendation to you? Who was the team here in this
The
building?
instructional leadership team.
Right. Who's on that?
They came to me talking about, we need to do something in support of Mr. LaToy and how flat out he was, and I had a meeting with Cheryl, and I emailed her and said, the ILT team would like to meet with you, and I'm sure she's about, oh man, what's going on?
So,
So
yeah,
who
the
is that?
ILT
I'm just curious,
is
who
grade
is it?
level representation, so every grade level has
Has somebody on that,
representation
okay.
at that table.
But it's not a team leader anymore.
No,
No.
no, so,
Teachers here.
it's all teachers,
All teachers.
It's teachers.
Okay.
But one from each grade.
at least one from each grade level.
Thereabouts. There's a couple.
Or
grade
they
levels
share a couple,
who didn't want anybody, so there's a couple grade levels who have two
Represent them.
teachers on it maybe, but they represent the school in that aspect. And what happened was, when we were at West Street, we had 5 at West Street, and we had 5 here in this Meadow came over here. So now it's a group of actually 11 teachers here in the building.
So, two things. One is some of the things that you're talking about, behavioral issues and supporting students who may have some challenges in the morning, in the afternoon, different times of the day. I thought some of that was handled through Carol's team, the People Services team. At least that was my impression, since they were the ones dealing with all these social emotional programs and all that stuff. So the other question that I have is, I'll just throw both of them. It seems like there's some overlap between what you are describing and what I would think as part of the assistant principal role. Does it mean that this will satisfy whatever gap we currently have, and we're not going to have an assistant principal discussion in the near future?
Correct.
Okay.
So yes to your second question. And the first question, by the time a student gets referred to a student support team where Carol's team comes into play, typically that means that the child has reached tier 2 or tier 3. This is a position where a dean of students can work with the entire school population and with teachers to help establish the culture and climate where we're not having students reach that tier 2, that we may be able to address behaviors as a group or through additional support prior to them either having a 504 or going on an IEP or being referred to student support, even hopefully maybe prior to having to go to a social emotional learning program or to have more support from the adjustment counselor or the social worker. So really trying to establish that culture and climate with a person prior to those higher level of need.
This is probably me being naive, but is there really that much behavior issues in such a small school? I mean, like, I would hope that there's this position that we can, talk about and maybe focus on some more positive rather than having it be a negative undertone.
Right. It's one of those things where
about
if we can't address some of the smaller behaviors and kids are using those behaviors to get our attention and they're not getting our attention, then they become bigger behaviors. So our intent is to, again, as Bill was talking about, really work with peace builders, really work with those kinds of programs to help kids understand the value and really learn those concepts. And if we're addressing those smaller behaviors, then they won't escalate into some of the larger. So, I mean, we have how many kids now? 401? 401 students with one administrator. That's
a lot, but
that's a high ratio. So we're not getting
to use this person for more than just behavior issues. Like it seems like if we're focusing on, I don't know, I'm just concerned that it seems like we need a full-time person to address behaviors in a school that's 400 kids. Like, are we that far out of whack that we have a lot of kids with behavior issues, or is it? I'm just not understanding it. So that's me being naive. I admit it, but I want to understand where.
You're not naive at all.
I want to understand where it's coming from. Like, I believe me when I say I certainly think you need help, but I'm just not sure that the only way that we can allow you to have help is to address a behavior issue in a school that's small. That's where I'm concerned, and I don't understand.
One of the other things that I envision this person helping with is parental contact. I am in contact with a number of parents every day. There's parents, from academic reasons, for behavior reasons, for just family support reasons. So I'm hoping that this person can help with that as well, because that's huge. And to be proactive and to be able to talk to those parents every day is very time consuming. I probably spend, up to 2 hours a day contacting parents, and whether it be email, phone calls, returning phone calls. One of the other things we do is, so for our students who are in pretty high in need of support for behavior, there's daily behavior charts that go home that our 2 social workers or adjustment counselors work with those students and those teachers on. And this past year, we probably had 10 or 12 of those students alone that were getting daily behavior reports home, and that requires a lot of time to go over those, email them to the house, get them back, and that's what our counselors are doing. So with that piece said, there's not a lot of other pieces, but it's the modeling, and it's going to be the visibility, because just as long as I can be visible in the building, and I can walk around, and I can be at breakfast, and I can be at recess. And one of my other big things is and Cheryl and I have talked about this a lot, recess, structured play. We've got to work with these students on structured play. So, as an assistant principal, I was an assistant principal for 6 years, and I was at every recess every day. And that's what I did, was I started Foursquare games, and I started kickball games and wiffle ball games, and got the students going on structured play, and I was there to keep it going. And with the absence of that, because we don't have teachers out there at recess, you know, we have 2 lunch monitors who do their best to maintain that. Somebody who can be there every day and that knows the students and can promote that, there's another huge piece of it that I see. A big benefit is that piece of it.
Also, Mr. LaToy's not telling you, some of the things that he has done. Kids have earned having lunch with him. Do you know what a big deal that is for a kid to go and sit in his office to have lunch? Kids earn, these kids on behavior charts earn things, earn a break, go out and throw the football with a friend. These kind of things, the dean of student, they can earn a break with the dean of students. This person isn't gonna be, oh, I'm gonna go see, you know, Mr. or Miss or whoever, so-and-so. It's, oh my gosh, I get a break with them, maybe I'll have lunch with them. They earn breaks. It's not just a bad guy, it's a good guy too. It's a big thing to earn a break with somebody, or earn a privilege.
Yeah.
You know, I get to help them deliver folders, I get to help them, or, you know, I get to help make the morning announcements. A lot of these kids on behaviors earn these things. Okay, so a dean of students would be more available, you know, to do those breaks, and Mr. LaToy also. I mean, kids think it's a big deal to earn something with the people in charge.
So I too was under the impression that a lot of this was being done, you know, elsewhere. Obviously, having you go deal with the behavioral issue at the same time you might have to deal with a lunch issue is probably not ideal, right?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of things, you know, that have taken, you know, I haven't been able to focus on as much. Instructional leadership in the classrooms, curriculum rewriting, curriculum building, and a lot of that stuff, because I am out there all day with students. Now, you ask, are there a lot, you know, in relative to other communities, Granby is so fortunate. Like, we are so fortunate. I talk about it all the time, we're in a bubble. And the students that we have here and the behavior issues and things that we have here are very limited compared to most other communities. However, you're talking about one person with that limited number. If we were in other communities, you would see probably a dean of students and an assistant principal in a lot of these other communities, you know, or 2 assistant principals. And the schools have not much more of our size because of the demographics of the students and whatnot. We're very fortunate, and most of our students here just need a reminder. They just need somebody to walk down the hall, and when they're gonna do something, look at them and go, that the good decision, you know, or, you know, if your mother was sitting right there on your shoulder, or your father, or, you know, if I was over in your, would you do that, you know? So it's more of the teaching part of that, and that's what I've tried to instill for the 3 years that I've been here is, you know, not so much, you know, the discipline piece and the consequence piece, but the educational part of it, making better decisions, making better choices, and how do we do that? And it's not always something severe, it could be something silly, it could be something where they push somebody and somebody got hurt, but how do you have that conversation? And that conversation takes time, and then it takes a follow-up and things like that. So that's where I think, you know, we're looking to really make sure that we have adequate, you know, help and resources for that.
I have another question. Would this person, if a student's having problems, especially when they get into the older grades, to collaborate and work to resolve issues between a teacher and a student? Because I know some of these behaviors in classrooms become a part of a conflict between a student and a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I've tried to do that as well, and that's one of the things where there's just so much of me to go around, and that's exactly what another person could do, and even be in classrooms, you know. I mean, my goal is that this person will be walking through every classroom every day, just like I do, so that we can see where things are bubbling up, and so that we can be there. And, you know, if a student needs something, they feel comfortable saying, oh, you know, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, or, you know, can I talk to you for a minute? And, you know, trying to work through that. And then having that conversation with the parent. Listen, I was talking to Johnny today, and this is what came up. And, you know, there's just, it's, you know, the world of education has gotten far more complicated in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years. And I think, doing what we did to get into the new building and to get there, but to support our students moving forward and to really be able to make sure that we're preparing these students before they get to the high school, middle school, and trying to resolve as much conflict and trying to resolve as much, maybe, just giving them the tools that they need to be successful when they get there.
So a couple concerns would be it's not budgeted. So is that playing into the thinking? Because I would think that you'd want to get more than just what I said earlier, taking care of some discipline issues, to get more out of this person in curriculum, in leadership, and maybe help and evaluate, observe. So why not a vice principal or assistant principal? Is it just the money issue? Because if it's school choice, I mean, it's got to be taken. This is not a one-year position, so it's got to be assumed somewhere else next year. So why not? What's the thinking, vice principal, assistant? I mean, you were an assistant, so you have some experience here. Dean of students versus a teacher who I would assume, I'm talking out of turn now, but they're on their teacher's contract, where their day ends at 10 minutes to 3, they can go home. I mean, and it seems to me there's other needs here that will extend beyond 10 minutes to 3 that would be more in an administrative position. Meeting with you afterwards, meeting early, that it seems to me you get more bang for it. It's going to be a little bit more money, I assume, but I think you need to go think that way, but especially with now we're asking us, we don't really have a job description to look at. What's expected of this? I don't know how you're going to put that in, but it's easier to do a job description for assistant principal, and I think you'll get more bang for the buck, more needs out of that, I think.
Or is there a way that that's a really good point that, if you've got someone that's a teacher, it's already hard speaking as a working parent, to be able to try to rearrange a work schedule if there's a meeting that's needed or whatever within those work hours, because most people, their day is a little bit longer than a teacher's day. So if you have a dean of students that's supposed to be helping to make those contacts and those inroads with parents, to have another person that's only available until 3 o'clock, now you're adding, it's going to just come right back on you because you're here later. I know you're here all the time, but now they're going to be taking care of part of it, and then you're going to have to come back and circle around and take care of that other 20% for anything that's late or whatever. So is there a way that you could structure this person's day to be longer than a standard Unit A teacher? I don't know how that works. I mean, if you're your Unit A teacher, your hours are this to this with no leeway or wiggle room?
So I think when we look at how teachers work, most teachers are working additional hours during the day. So whether they go home or whether they stay late, my assumption would be that the dean of students would see the 3 to 4 or as that additional time that they would have been working at home, grading papers or creating lesson plans. So we have plenty of examples of teachers that work beyond the structured, 3 o'clock end of the day. So I'm not sure that would be an issue. As far as the dean of students versus the assistant principal, when I talked to the ILT, they were really looking for behavioral support in the classroom. And they were the ones that brought up dean of student. They were the ones that felt that a dean of students they could collaborate with. And, from my perspective, is there a budgetary impact? Yes. The contract is obviously going to be a less expense than an administrator. And, we have heard from the community about the amount of administration that is here in Granby, and that's a concern. So I think we looked at all of that and really decided that the dean of students would be the first step for us in seeing if we can, again, change and help staff manage culture and climate at the level for all students. So that's why we made that decision. Okay. And I understand we've had those discussions at the leadership level with Bill, with the ILT. So we certainly understand, that potential to get more, but that was a decision that we moved forward with.
I just Googled Dean of Students Elementary School, and So what I'm reading as a basic function, so this is verbatim from the Willows Unified School District. I don't even know what state it's in. But I'm just gonna read it to you, and then my question is this. Under the direction of the principal, the Dean of Students K through 8 serves as an instructional leader in the planning, coordination, and administration of school activities and programs, including curriculum, instruction, assessment, student conduct and attendance, athletics and extracurricular programs, school plant operations, and the supervision and evaluation of assigned personnel. So I like that description, and behavior is kind of like the least, it's buried in there as one of the, so if we do something like this, I'm more for it, but I'm not loving the idea where it's mostly focused on behavior. Like, I feel like if it's just a behavior thing, I feel like you could almost get like a glorified hall monitor, someone to be around to do something. But I feel Dean of Students is kind of a hefty title, and I like it, but I think we need to have, I don't know.
Right, so, in Massachusetts, if the position is going to evaluate staff, then it needs to be an administrator. And that comes with an administrator license, which really eliminates the potential for internal candidates. I'm not sure that there would be interest nor licensure within the internal capacity that we have. So that was another, I think, criteria that we looked at when we were looking at exploring, how to build the position, but then also how to staff the position. We're not unopposed to assistant principal. It just opens up a different path.
And the goal is to have this person by September 2nd, start of school.
Yep.
Well, that's the goal, yeah.
But we are, so our philosophy is that if we don't find the candidate, then we reopen the position. We're not going to settle. It is a little late to be looking for assistant principals, but it's not too late if that was the decision. It might be a little late to start at the beginning of the year, given people have to give notice and we have to go through the process of interviews and all of that. But
get a job description and all that.
Yep.
That takes some time too.
Well, job descriptions are fairly easy. I mean, there's probably job description on file already.
right, for assistant principal, absolutely, we already have one.
But I think, the other piece of that, just real quick, would be, if there were internal candidates, it can also be posted licensed or willing to be licensed, or, and there's ways around that as well, that you can, you can hire somebody on a waiver, or get somebody that's willing to do it, and enrolls in a program. So, it's open to a lot of possibility and endless discussion, I guess. It's just, what suits us best. Do we need somebody for the summers? Not really. We don't need another body for the summer, but we, I understand, Mr. Petrus's point of view, your point of view, that you want it to be, useful, and you want it to be Emery's point, or are we going to do this just to put the fire out and then have to come back to the table in a year or two and say, well, now, you know what, you're right, there are too many evaluations, or there's this, or there's that, so I think all the questions you've come up with are valid questions, and that's the importance of a discussion like this. So, Emery, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all good. I appreciate that. I think at the end of the day, whatever position or positions we discuss, not just for this conversation, but for any, should reflect a need. And I'm not sure that I'm convinced that we're talking about the entire need. If that's the case, then it's all good. If on the other side, we may have a need to go a little more on, whatever description Jen just read, that would be a concern. That's what I'm asking. Otherwise, the only thing that I want to make sure is that our decision is based on a good understanding of the need that you are trying to articulate here, as opposed to, creating a job description that may have some, something in it that we may not even need. So if we're saying that this role, as you described it, absent a formal job description, is what's going to solve the issues that you're seeing currently, it's all good. But you absolutely read it correctly that I do not want to miss the opportunity to have a conversation earlier than later about a position that may be an administrative position, but if we're gonna have that conversation next year, I'd rather have it this year. And if we anticipate having that conversation, I'd rather see if we can at least have some stopgap solutions to the issues that we are seeing, and then have that full conversation around the position that will meet the needs on both sides, the administrative and behavioral and everything else. And that's my understanding of the position of dean. That's why I was getting confused that it is a loaded title, dean. Maybe that's what they are using for these types of positions, but maybe there is a different title that may reflect better what we're trying to do, with that position that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was struggling with the dean part too, based on what was being spoken about. So I think we keep going back to, I guess, understanding or at least getting a job description of what we see the needs are right now, and then maybe at that point we can look at the title.
We can certainly come with both, I think, and have the next discussion. I think we wanted to stay away from a description, something like you see in other districts with maybe more behavior challenges, teacher of deportment, teachers of character. We really wanted Dean of Students to sort of embrace culture and climate at Tier 1. So being able to implement peace builders, our classrooms that are doing responsive classroom, building those classroom cultures with staff so that students are more responsive and more engaged. I think that's the direction we were trying to go in, so that we're proactive as opposed to reactive.
And I think that's what, not to put any words in your mouth, but that's what Jen was saying earlier as well, that the tone, if it's a negative tone,
Right.
people may say, well, what kind of problem are we having in our small district, right?
Right.
If we are going to build it on the positive note that years ago we started peace builders and everything else, now we want to build on it and make it even more visible and more impactful in our classrooms. That's a different conversation to have. So maybe the position is a cultural, cultural
Ambassador.
development, cultural improvement teacher or something like that, as opposed to an enforcement role.
Right.
For the record, I think a dean of students is probably what we need, but I think we need to have the beefier undertones of what a dean embodies. I worked in higher ed, and I work at some of these. I worked at AIC where the licensure programs are offered, so I'm kind of familiar with some of the requirements for some of that stuff. And I think maybe, like Mike just said, is if we have the job description of what it is that you're looking for, and it might help you guys itemize out more, because I think if someone looks on School Spring or something for Dean of Students, they're going to automatically have a set of roles and responsibilities, sort of because it's what the title calls for. Like if you see vice principal or superintendent or whatever, there's a basic understanding, and I don't feel like we're getting at the basic understanding of what a Dean of Students role is based on the discussion that we're having. So I think if you guys can come back with a detailed description of how you want the Granby Elementary School East Meadow Dean of Students to function, then maybe it'll be easier to see. But right now, I don't think Dean of Students capitalizes, or that's not the word I want, captures the mood of what this role actually is going to be. I think it's really going after a different direction, and I think we need to get someone from Mr. Latoy to help. Clearly, because it's a huge student body, 400 students for one person. That's outlandish, like I get it. But I don't think we're, I don't know. It's me hung up on semantics,
so
I guess.
let me ask you this. If the intent is to have, in addition to this work on culture and climate, working collaboratively with staff, really addressing culture and climate with students and being proactive, if in addition you are thinking that this person needs to have an administrative role in terms of evaluating staff, in terms of supervising staff, then you have to go in the direction of administration. It has to be an assistant principal or vice principal, whatever you call it. If you don't think that that's the direction, then it can be a Unit A teaching position. And
But I don't,
It can be.
personally, I don't wanna guess that. I trust your experience and I trust that you know what you need.
right,
Despite all this conversation, at the end of the day, you say, you know what, for instance, the example that you just gave. Summertime, do we need that extra body? We don't. So, you know, an assistant principal would be an extended position over the entire year. I completely understand that. I think what we're trying to say is that hopefully we're not withholding whatever we need because, you know, we don't want to have the budget conversation. It may be one of the impediments to this conversation, true, but I don't even know what the other one costs yet. So it would be good to have all these options, but my driver is what you guys think the school district needs, really needs, not something extra. Maybe in the future we may need this, we may need that. In my mind, you know, if you don't need it, you don't need it. That's fine. I would look to you to define what that need is and then come to us that way.
Could it also be something like in a supportive of students and teachers? Is there like a rule out there that would be a support, like we have here at the high school? There's that support suite that's here. Could it, and I know that is for counseling and stuff, but is there something that could be set up where you have somebody in this position that would be available to help collaborate? And that wouldn't require someone to be here during the summer.
Well, and I think, you know, back to the original introduction of it, the staff, because they came to me before they even went to anybody else and said, listen, we're not throwing you under the bus, but we are moving forward because we see the need for an additional person, you know, and I think the staff would feel more comfortable as well with a dean of students, where it was somebody to support them and somebody to work with them, as opposed to my years as assistant principal. Teachers always, I think, felt a little uneasy, and Jim, as a former administrator, you might understand too, coming to you and saying, I don't know how to handle this student, or I can't handle this student, or this student is beyond me, because now they're coming and admitting they can't do their job.
They never did that because I didn't know how to handle it. No, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I understand all this, and I guess that's the thing that just hit me right away was like, I got this picture, and I haven't talked to a lot of my former teachers, like the place is just, we're not taking care of the behavior, or these behaviors they're happening and they're not being addressed, so therefore they just, you know what that's like, they just continue. And the teacher gets frustrated and realizes that hopefully this person would have to be the miracle maker to stay on top of it. So it seems to me, you know, and I have no problem with that. I think it's good to hear what teachers feel, because teachers are you know how I feel, that teachers are the most important person in a school district. They're the ones doing all the hard work. The better work they do, it's easier for us administrators, you know, and then they realize full well that administrators don't have all the magic tricks that can just fix this kid. You know, send him to your office and he's fixed and he won't be a problem the rest of the year. It doesn't happen that way. But it's the constant, you know, hey, we don't do that stuff around here. And maybe you got to say it a few times. But so it seems to me, just reflecting on this and considering the budget, that maybe you would need to, and I would think that you are looking at, hopefully, to really make this work, you've got to have somebody who's been in this building, who knows the culture and knows the way things work around here. Because you can't bring someone in who's been teaching in Timbuktu, bring them in here now, because there's a whole learning curve there. So I would think it would be someone here. So maybe it's worth to try it for a year, and maybe you post it as a 1-year position just to see what things are like, and maybe it'll lead into something, or fix it and won't need it anymore. But I mean, I think that's retrospect and thinking back now, thinking of where the staff is feeling and this and that it's worth a 1-year try to put a dean in. And yeah, you're going to work out the details, and obviously it's going to be one of those kind of things like have all our supplies, you know. You don't have to do this, but you know, teachers have wealth of information who can also do some things and share things with you. You know, not to talk about a teacher's not doing this or that, because, you know, we all need improvement in things. There's no perfect thing, you know, we all go through things well, but that doesn't mean to put them under the bus kind of thing either, so.
Exactly. No,
And I think one of the things we haven't talked about was this exact idea about having an opportunity for internal candidate to grow into a position that's different than a classroom teacher. We don't have a lot of opportunities in Granby for teachers to grow in that way, and we've talked a lot about how do we grow from the internal, and this is a way to do that. And so we did ask and sort of canvass, would people be interested in that type of position? And we do have some interest. That's not to say that when push comes to shove that they actually make that transition from a classroom instruction
Yeah,
position
yeah,
into
I
a
mean-
dean of students, but it is a way for us to help teachers see maybe a different path or a different role for them, in a way I think that, you know, may change over time, but it is a good first step. And I think that was part of our thinking in moving with the dean of students as opposed to right into an assistant principal, that we do have some internal capacity that we'd like to see potentially people grow into the role. So, you know,
And you know, based on our previous conversations,
Yeah.
that mindset, I'm
Right.
absolutely supportive
Yes.
of that mindset.
Yep.
Folks from within. One quick question, just to make sure that I understand this. If it were somebody from within, what happens? That individual then now has to deal with a classroom and other students? So what do we do with that position then? Then we have to worry about that position? And
we
hire
fill a
teacher
classroom
for
teacher
that?
position, yeah.
And we could do a long-term sub for a year. I mean, there's a lot of students just coming out of school right now that are looking for work and would not hesitate to take this. We've gotten a couple of teachers this way over the last couple of years, a long-term sub position for a
Okay.
year.
Or you just
With-
post as a one-year position.
Yep.
And then, you know, that leaves the door open for that person that is in the dean position to decide they want to go back to their classroom. That leaves the door open for us to say, you know what, it didn't really work the way we thought, and have more conversations. Or, you know, great, it worked great, and this is what we're gonna do moving forward, and this is where we're at, you know, and I don't think we should get hung up on, I mean, there's plenty of schools with dean of student positions, and I think, you know, here in Granby, things have always been done a little different.
Doesn't make it right.
Well, not that it makes it, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but like lead teachers, you know, they had lead teachers here who picked up the role of administrator when the administrators were out of the building because there was nobody else. So, you know, as far as this dean position, you know, I think there would be a bite to it, and I think we could make sure that there was an understanding of before school and after school hours, like our adjustment counselors and our social workers, and you know, they're here till 4 o'clock every day, and because they know that they're not doing homework, they're not correcting papers, things like that. So there's that understanding there, and you know, I think we can make sure we fill all of those pieces. I think the big piece now is just, yeah, we recognize that we need it. You know, we put a strong job description together, and then, you know, we can move forward. And if it's an internal candidate, then we can start looking now for a long-term sub for that classroom, you know, and, you know, feel out the staff to say, yeah, is there anybody out there seriously that wants this? And you know, and then move from there. And it might be somebody that gets into it and then wants to go into administrative courses and then become an administrator down the road. You know, they might say, yeah, I'd like to get my license because I can see myself progressing and I can see myself becoming an administrator. And they might not have ever wanted to make that leap before.
Yeah, I think we're overdoing this one, just second guessing some things. But since I heard you say that a long-term sub may be an option, my personal feeling on that one is, at the end of the day, the student is the most important person in the building, right? I would not want the students to be affected by a long-term sub while we are waiting to see whether or not somebody who ventured into a new position may or may not like it. Either they like it, they go ahead, and then we fill that position with the best candidate that we can find so the students aren't affected, or we just find some alternatives to that. I would personally be
Right, so
not
we would
in
be
favor.
looking for a certified licensed teacher for the year, to fill that position. So it wouldn't be like,
Positions are year to year anyway for a
Right.
beginning teacher. They're
Yeah.
year to year anyway. There's no guarantee beyond the first year anyhow.
And the closer you get to the beginning of
If that's-
school.
that's how
Right.
it works, that's
So
how it works,
we
yeah.
wouldn't be pulling from the sub pool, you know, and putting
Okay,
someone
good.
in.
So
We
thank
would
you for
be
clarifying.
advertising for a licensed teacher, and as Bill spoke, these are positions that, you know, are new graduates or are second or third year in an unfortunate situation where they might have had their position eliminated, do a budget cut or something, may come to Granby and may look at that position and be very interested. So we would be hiring a certified licensed teacher.
So we're gonna put together a job description of some sort so that we understand what it is that we're gonna be hiring for. Right? Because again, just looking at this, and then I was not really understanding what we were gonna try to do here tonight. If we had to vote, were we even allowed to vote without having a job description to vote for, right?
But I would think you really, I understand that, even though I said it, but I think you really need to get started on this, because it's almost August.
I would ask that you vote it and allow us to put a job description together. Putting a job description together, they're, like I said, they're out there, there's a lot of districts that have them. There's, you know, and we can get that to you. I would ask that, you know, it's approved so we could post for an anticipated opening at least, and then go from there and then move forward with the filling of it. And then, you know, go from there. I think, you know, the job description, because we're so far away from hiring, the job description could come for approval at the next meeting.
Right.
And then could be discussed and changed, because if we hire somebody, we've got time before we would have to do that, you know, and have them come on board. So I think anybody that came forward, we could say, okay, your job description is gonna be, you know, voted on and approved at the next school committee meeting, at which time we're gonna finalize it to you and go from there. I don't think we can get hung up on that, and I don't think anybody would be hung up on that, because as you said, there's certain understandings of what those positions and those roles are, you know.
When you post this, are you just gonna post it internally to begin with?
That's the
We
thought.
would post
is to
internally
it
first.
So
internally and put
so
the
if
word
no one's
out
in,
that-
if no one's interested, you'll know right away
Right.
within that posting period, right?
Contractually, they have to post it internally first.
Right, but
because
if
it's unit.
But if no one applies, then you can apply out.
Mm-hmm.
And was it 5 days or 7? Yeah.
I'll make a motion to begin searching for a dean of students as discussed at this meeting.
I'll second that.
Right, I guess the only outstanding thing left is, do we need to put a stipulation, like we're gonna do a 1-year look at this, or how are we gonna approach that? Or are we just gonna call the dean of students and have this in the budget for next year? Is the question.
I think that's what
Mhm.
we're
I
saying.
don't know if you asked, then at the last minute, we started having this discussion
Right.
about a 1-year trial period, and maybe it doesn't work, maybe it does work.
Well, I don't think the need's gonna go away.
Right.
Okay.
I just-
I don't-
Right.
We closed all these little pieces of discussion.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I think at minimal, the dean of student position would exist, and then it's more based on as it rolls through the year, does it fit truly the need that we're seeing? And also, is there potential for a candidate to grow into a different position? And then it's a discussion through the budget cycle with the ILT that the need is different or the need is the same, and you know, the needs of the students are being met, the needs of staff are being met by the position.
Because my thought is this might change a little bit as the year progresses, as you see.
Well, and
how this plays out.
most contracts for administration or for deans or for guidance or student support, they all have that line in there, in administrative assistants, any other duties as assigned by administrator.
It's in all contracts, Mr. Latour.
And, you know,
related duties.
So,
And related duties.
you know, that gives us that wiggle room if we needed to change anything or work anything else in there, I think, you know. But I can't remember a job ever that the job description was what I did. In
Well,
education,
I just want to make sure
anyway.
that you had the ability to shift what your original thought is to something different as you saw the job progress throughout the year.
So, if I may, when we hired the curriculum coordinator, technology integration, that was part of the conversation, and this would be part of the conversation with the dean of students. This is a new position for us. Throughout the year, we'd like to have multiple conversations about your perception of the role and how it's going, and are there any changes that need to be made to the job description or to the expectation that it is a first time we're doing this. So that is usually part of how we're interviewing, and part of how, when we're hiring, we're very clear that it's a two-way street. We want feedback from you so that the position is clear, and that we want feedback from teachers, we want feedback from students, and we want feedback from parents that the role is supporting the needs of the school and the children.
One thing that I would throw out there is that when anyone looks at a job posting, they look at the title. So if we are confused by the term dean, I would not want that term to cause some folks not to even look at it. If there's a better way of expressing what we are looking for, maybe, that's one
I
way.
think in our field, in understanding education and administration, and the dean carries a significantly different title
Okay.
than assistant principal and than vice principal, and kind of has that idea to it. And if you look at higher education, the dean of students, and that's what they are. They are, and I think it flows down from there. They're student oriented, and they're student related, and that's where the deans come from. And a lot of elementary schools have shifted from vice principals or assistant principals to dean of student positions over the last couple of years.
Well, we'll know that they'll be in charge if you're not here.
Well, that's part of it
Another
too,
thing,
but I think that's
That's
what
the key
staff
thing,
is
too.
looking for too.
Yeah.
They're looking for somebody that they know they can go to if I'm not here,
Anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to excuse myself from the meeting.
Excellent,
Thanks,
Marcus.
Marcus.
Thank you.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
New grant for safety and door locks.
So I put in the folder the Granby Public School District, the award of the $30,400 that we worked with the police department on for the safety and security grant. I apologize. And so I'm going to turn it over to Adam because they did the walkthrough today and talk about what we're going to be doing with the grant.
Yeah, so I believe it was last year there were some doors replaced, and with the amount of funding during that cycle, we didn't have enough to replace all of the exterior doors. So what this grant will allow us to do is finish the replacement of those doors. And it should, the amount that we were awarded, it should get us to the amount of doors that we need. So I did a walkthrough with John Sullivan, Principal Steve Sullivan, Chief Wishart, and Officer White today to kind of inventory the doors that we need.
No fire?
What's that? We're going to put a proposal out because it will have to go out to bid, and we'll wait to see what comes back. So that'll be going out to bid within the next, I would say, month or so.
Are these doors just at the high school? Because these
Yeah,
doors
just
should
at the
all
high
be
school.
brand new,
Yep, just at the
right?
high school. And this is actually the second round of this funding that we've gotten. The first round, we installed security cameras in the high school. This is the second round, and there's talks that there is more money that they'll be awarding. So we'll certainly apply for that, and because there's certainly a need for security updates in the school. So
Cool.
once we have more
Are those
information.
doors, or are there internal doors as well?
So the language in the grant is for egress doors. So you have to have a way outside with no special knowledge on how to open those doors. So essentially just a door with a crash bar on the inside of it so you could get out in case there was an emergency. We are going to try, depending on how the quotes come back from the bid, to kind of upgrade the mechanisms on those doors so they're a little better than what the grant calls for, but that's at least the baseline for the grant, that it needs to be an egress and it needs to be easily accessed in case of an emergency. So
Do we, I just have to ask this, and I hope people don't take it the wrong way. Do we have to let anybody at town hall know about this?
Yep.
Because I don't want to be in another
Yep.
situation we were going.
Yeah, so we've been working with Chris Martin, who has signed off on our ability as the school department to work with the grant folks to procure the contracts for the replacement of the doors. So yes, they are aware, yes, they've signed, we've signed, so now it'll go out to bid and procurement of the doors.
Procurement officer of the town.
He is, so he
he's
gave
aware.
us permission, he gave basically the superintendent permission to work on the contract.
But in this instance, actually, the police department applied for the grant on behalf of the school, so Chief Wishart is kind of
He's a front.
doing most of the legwork.
Right, I just had to sign.
Yeah, we just had to sign the contract, so it came out of their office technically, so,
Yeah.
Bless you.
bless you.
All right, I just want to make sure that we have all that.
Yeah, yep.
Yes.
Yep, mm-hmm.
So my communication thing, and I was gonna, I heard this 10 days ago or so, cause somebody shared something that was on Facebook, and I said, well, I'm sure we're gonna hear about it too, and this is the first time we are hearing it. These are good things for all of us to hear. I mean, just, we are receiving a grant for something that we've been talking about, so maybe we can make it part of our list of different types of communication.
So I tweeted it, it's on our Facebook page.
I don't do Facebook,
And
and I
our-
don't do Twitter either anymore. I just do LinkedIn.
Well, come up to 2020.
Yeah.
You and me are probably the only two in this room that don't do it, so.
Well, I don't
too.
know it.
Oh.
I saw it
And
on Facebook.
it's going on the webpage. Right now, the webpage, there's a ticket out. The webpage is down. I want to let everybody know that. We're not quite sure why, but David has a ticket out to Reddiker as to trying to figure out why we're not able to update and why it's literally down. So as soon as it's up, we will have it on the webpage as well. So.
I was asked, my wife said, so you got, the grant doors for the school? I'm like, interesting.
Well, actually, my wife told me too.
See, they're on Facebook.
Well, she saw some listing and then she shared it with me. But
They're on Facebook.
See, you don't need Facebook or Twitter, you're
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing Facebook anymore. I know that. Unless there's something dramatic that somebody sends me a link, I don't do Facebook. Twitter I do, but it's once in a blue moon. I'm
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. I don't do
Right.
anything else.
I mean, it is a good point. Like, how do we communicate? I am conservative in the use of the all-call system, but certainly that is a way to get information like that out. But then we are inundated at central office with, "Why did you call me?" They don't hear the whole message, they hang up, "Why did you call?" So it's sort of this catch-22 around how do we get this kind of information out, but also not inundating folks who,
No, I was talking about the school committee. I wasn't talking
Yeah.
about the.
So I'll
community.
email you next time. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Got it.
Yes, so we can be proud.
Okay.
To be honest, in this instance, the award we were supposed to be notified back in April, and it was delayed extensively, so I want to say, I just happened to reach out to James one day, and he's like, oh, actually, by the way, I just got the award notice,
Right.
they finally gave us the money, so it was,
And then they did not announce, they allowed the state reps to announce to their constituencies. So it kind of got convoluted, to your point. Yeah, we probably lost track
Regardless
of.
of what it is, I'm very happy.
Yes.
Cool.
Not only because of this, but I'm happy that we have been consistently pursuing different
Yes.
grants, and that's why
Absolutely.
I think we should have a different, separate bucket that says grants that we received,
Sure.
because it takes a few iterations for everyone to understand that that's a very deliberate
Yes.
attempt on the part of the school district.
Well, and in this case, it was actually the police department that.
Right, the collaboration, sure.
They were for the top, right?
Yep. I mean, we started that in September, I think, with meetings around,
Yep.
are we gonna go for this grant? What is it, what needs do we have in the grant, that meet the requirements of the grant? So thank you to the police department for certainly putting this one together, and we have been very successful, and we do have, considerable needs even moving forward, so,
It's always been a bugaboo of James's. He spent a lot of time over there he's been a big pusher for that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
certainly, yep.
James White,
Yep.
resource officer, so,
That's pretty great.
yeah.
The next item is the evaluation of the superintendent. Don't remember where we left off. I wanted to think that you were supposed to put something out
Going
there.
to share some stuff.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and what my real hope was is that we could kind of close this out sometime next month.
Yes, I think
Okay.
we could. So here's what I will suggest, and I will keep this short. I spent, again, some time on this, and I went back to MASS conference from a couple of years ago when there was a presentation on this. I read through that, and I went to some superintendent evaluations and read through those as well. I think this is probably, potentially, one of the most convoluted evaluation processes that I know. And I think it is complicated for no good reason. So finally, I reached this summary in my head that I'm going to propose to everyone. There are essentially two sections to the evaluation. The first part is the goals that you put together, you share with us, and we approve, and then you work on making those goals a reality. And then you keep us informed about your progress, and at the end of the year provide us with measurements that say, here's what we set out to do and this is what we got. So that is the goal side, and I'm going to return to that. The second part of the evaluation is standards. We have no control over standards. Those are required. We have to read through whatever is under those standard sections. There are 4 of them, and then we have to share our input with respect to each one of those categories. If we don't have anything, we don't have anything. If we do have something, then we capture them as such. So here's my first question to the committee. Because my understanding now, based on all the newspaper articles and evaluations that I read, is that the form itself appears to be intimidating to some folks because it's really a lot of reading, but some of it is not necessary, and weird wording and stuff. Everybody gets turned off, and then nobody wants to really do anything more on that. What I can do, I can just change the structure, keep what it is, at least keep the essence, create a spreadsheet that will only require you to go through drop down answers, and then you will say yay, nay, whatever based on those the 4 categories that we have. I forget what those categories were now, but
Instructional leadership, management.
not the standards, but
exceeds.
meets expectations, exceed expectations,
Yeah.
proficient.
Exemplary.
Yeah, exemplary, right.
Exemplary all the way down. See,
It'll be
it's
easy.
So
perfect.
I can create that, and I would like to do that
I like it,
actually.
like
I
we
think
think.
it's easier for me as well. I will do that. I will send it to everyone with the request that before our next meeting, you return your input to me, and I summarize the whole thing and bring it to our next meeting. Here are the 2 steps within that standard section. The first part is you go through each one of those sub-elements of the standard, and then you select one of the 4, categories, 4 answers. And then when you're done with that, below each one of them, there is something that is, whatever they call that, not ranking, rating, but something close to that, rating. So you put your overall rating. You either call the superintendent proficient or, exceeds expectations or exemplary, or needs improvement or something else. But you have to do both steps. First, you go line by line, you say how you feel the superintendent performed on each one of those elements, and after that, you have that, what they call the summative version of it, which is you summarize it with that one
The overall.
word.
Right.
So I will turn that whole thing into a spreadsheet and send it to you. Hopefully it's going to make it easier, and I will get rid of all the fluff around it, the extra readings and all that. You can do that. However, I will ask everyone to do this as well, which was very helpful, and it's, in my mind, should be required anyway. If you do have an answer based on your interaction or experience with the superintendent, please take the time to write down a sentence or 2 that is an evidence of your response. So if you said proficient, give us a sentence that says, superintendent was at all the meetings that, we held as a school committee. I'm just making it, right? That's the reason why you call this proficient. So we know how everybody felt about the superintendent's performance last year, and that makes it easier for me to sum everything up and go as well. So now going back to the goals side. At the beginning of last year, we had just completed our strategic plan. And our conversations, if I'm not mistaken, were such that we were saying there were different timelines to different items under each one of those four strategies that we have. Some of them were intentionally written in a way that they would be very quick actions, and we repeatedly told Cheryl that we will hold everyone actually in the school district to those quicker actions so that we can have conversations around those. I would suggest that we go back to that premise, and then we ask you to pick those shorter timeline items in the strategic plan and bring those back as your goals. And on top of that, again, hopefully even before I receive the input from the school committee members, you share with us your own self-evaluation based on those criteria. So now what we have is your self-evaluation. We have the goals from the strategic plan, and then you will have whatever I will share with you on that spreadsheet that summarizes that standard section. Putting it all together very quickly, that's going to drive our conversation in August. That should hopefully make it even a better conversation without the fluff around those forms.
Perfect.
So,
You'd be fine with 3, because I won't feel confident enough to stepping in to try to, out of fairness to Cheryl to do that, so I don't know about how you feel about it.
I was on the strategic plan, so
Okay,
I've
so
had
you have more of a
experience,
background than I do, so
Yeah, so Jen basically said whatever I was going to suggest. If you did have any interactions in any capacity that allows you to say anything, you don't have to fill the whole thing. But if you say, during the last school year, I had no interaction whatsoever with the superintendent that allows me to answer any.
We can discuss the soccer game.
Yeah. So soccer is
I think
a
we
good-
talked about
good
the
note.
ski trip
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
some point.
trip too, so that's good thing, you're right.
Lions, maybe.
So please,
All right, thank you.
you're absolutely right, that would be a good input as well. So my suggestion, if you don't mind, for next year, we do that well, a little better. The reason why the first 2 years we did not have that much of evaluation cycle was because you were on you don't call it onboarding, but you call
NISIP.
it something else. What is it?
NISIP, new superintendent induction.
Induction. So you were on that induction program.
Yeah.
And
That was
we
it.
based all of our conversations on
Yep.
what you were doing in the induction program. Now that we are where we are, we should start the evaluation cycle immediately with your goals, reviewing your goals, so you immediately start working based on those goals. So that's going to be a little bit of extra work for you, but as soon as we're done in August with this one, I think in September one of our meetings should have that conversation. That starts with your goals
Yes.
that you provide to us.
so just so I can get it, and I do agree, that's one of the reasons I want to try to close this out in August, is because I want to get started on next year right away, because we want to kind of reverse what we've been doing and set the goals early in the year, and then come back and revisit them later in the year to see where we're at. But just so I understand something, you're going to provide us a spreadsheet that's going to kind of make the state mandatory stuff a little bit more easy to read and user-friendly for us, right? And Cheryl's going to send us what her goals were for this year and for self-evaluation around those goals, and then we're going to do that little short version that you're creating, as well as rate Cheryl on what the goals are that she's going to send us.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood all the parts and pieces.
So the first part, absolutely, that's a great question. The first part is dependent on what you will share with me, which is going to be based on the strategic plan, so I can include it as well and share with everybody. Then,
Yep.
yeah. I think we have a little time. What are we meeting next? I don't even know.
Jacqueline, do you have those?
Our next meeting date?
Yeah.
Actually, we did not, I don't think.
We haven't
decided
gotten
on
that
our
far yet, we
dates.
haven't said them.
Yeah,
I thought we talked dates before.
We
I don't
did
know
have dates. It
when we
was
started, if it was
Tuesday.
September or
It
August.
was,
I know July we left up in the air and everything got busy.
It was back in
It must be
the,
the meeting I missed, because I don't have them written down.
13 and 22nd?
22nd is the Thursday.
27th, sorry.
Have you set the dates for, the rest of the year?
was it going to
I
Tuesdays?
thought you submitted a list and I thought we.
Yeah, I
yeah,
thought
but we
so
did not,
too.
we did not approve that.
No.
You,
We did, because I thought we spent some time doing it. You said that you weren't available some of these days, but that shouldn't hold up the.
I don't think we voted on anything well into the fall or anything. Things were looked at, but we just sort of. it's
So
just
why don't we put it on the
discussion.
August agenda? I'll put that list back together. I remember the discussion about moving to Tuesdays, which I appreciate, because now I can get to some of the town meetings, which is great. And I will put those in a list.
And then I remember
Jacqueline will
we
put those in a list.
discussed whether it's gonna be every Tuesday, or if we're gonna alternate Mondays and Tuesdays, depending on which meeting it was, and I know Jim wasn't available
Yeah, I'm not really done with
at certain points.
Right.
And we talked about, are we still doing the every other meeting is, like a workshop type of thing? Yeah?
it. Yeah,
Okay,
we didn't decide on that either.
all right,
So I think we can finalize that in August.
okay.
yeah.
But the next one is
And
August 13th.
why don't, if you don't mind, and please don't reply all to this, but when Jacqueline has that list, I will send it to you, so if you could let me know your conflicts. If there are too many conflicts, then we'll potentially work around those.
Okay. So 8:13 and 8:27 though for the next two. All right, perfect.
Okay, and then our hope is to have the evaluation wrapped up. Is the 13th too soon at this point?
It's up to me, it's not.
Nope.
Okay.
No, I hope to get my things to you probably by Friday.
Awesome, then it's not.
Okay. Hope we can put this back on the agenda for the 13th, and hopefully we can just close it.
Perfect. And then we might be able to start the goal conversation for next year on the 27th, which would be great, because, as Emery said, really, the district goals with the superintendent goals shape the administrator goals, which shape the teacher goals. So we've been out of that cycle from the district and superintendent perspective, as you said, because of NISIP, but we're excited. I've already planned our leadership team to talk about district goals. So we have a district ILT meeting on August 1st that we're going to talk about district goals. Then we're going to come back together as the leadership team to finalize those district goals. So we're on a better cycle for goal setting across the board in the district. So.
East Middle Elementary Building Project. Do we have any updates?
So,
I know we were trying to get a meet, but.
right, we were trying to get a meeting. I think the back and forth was that there was no meeting set. And so I guess at this point, I just wonder if the school committee doesn't need to reach out, maybe the chair, to the building committee chair to set that meeting, because we don't, so our punch list that we have is being completed and done, or being wrapped up. So if the East Meadow Building Committee needs to meet, then we're not seeming to get any progress on getting that meeting scheduled, so I don't know if the chair might be able to.
I've tried a few times.
Get
but I
that
just
meeting.
I got blank stares. I'm sure you've tried.
No, actually, I sent an email with some requests offering to schedule that. So I'm looking to hear from you to say the conversation with Alan Mink has happened. We understand what the list is, and then we can call the meeting with the school building.
So I never reached out to Alan. I reached out to Chris, and his response to me was that he doesn't have a closeout date for the project, and we weren't sure on how to handle going forward with Alan or anybody else.
And when he says that, does it mean that we don't know? Or does it
Yeah,
mean that-
like we haven't been notified yet of
So let
a
me reach out
closeout
to
date.
Alan, find out the date for that,
Mhm.
and I will reach out to Mark, because I already had that conversation with Mark. And we'll call a meeting. The concern is this: if everything in the background is happening, there's a punch list, and we're taking care of
Mhm.
everything else,
Mhm.
that's good.
Mhm.
But we're also hearing from you during the meetings that there is a list, and there are some concerns. Certain things are not yet
Yep.
working.
Mhm.
The project ends, we miss the warranty, and then suddenly that list is still remaining. That's a big concern. That's the onus is
Yep.
on us then
Yep.
if we're not taking
Yep.
action.
And everyone is well aware of that. Obviously, Bill, John Sullivan, everyone's aware of. We're right up against warranty. Some things are already out of warranty. Not that are broken, but we've already come to that date with some things. But that punch list is being taken care of. There's just no date that we will officially take ownership of the building.
So is there a punch list and a separate list, or are we all
I-
talking about that same punch
Yeah.
list that everybody's aware of, but we don't know how quickly they're gonna get to it? Is that the issue that we're dealing with?
Well, there's the punch list, and then there's the final authorization, the final walkthrough that they're waiting for, and I think they did that once, with the final inspectors,
Mhm.
and.
From MSBA.
Yeah, MSBA, and, so I think it's just that, John Sullivan had walked through with them a little while ago.
Yeah, a month ago maybe,
Yeah,
maybe even
yeah,
2 months ago.
Some things were still recognized on there as needed to be completed, and something as simple as this past week, in the rainstorm we had, there was a window over in the common room that started leaking, that has never leaked before. So John got up there on the ladder and looked, and the inside flashing was never finished, and there was nothing done. You wouldn't see it because it's the old library, so it's way up on top there, and you couldn't see that it hadn't been done. So, he got in contact with everybody, they're sending the folks out to do it right away. So little things like that come up along the way, they're getting addressed as well. So I don't want anybody to think things aren't addressed. Anything we brought forward has been addressed. The light fixtures outside are finally replaced and fixed, and so all of that's happening.
So as you are going through that punch list, who is John's or your counterparts who are responding to that punch list? Who are you working with?
I don't have anything to do with that punch list other than John updates me on.
Okay, so is John working with the project team?
John's working with
Yeah.
Tracy from
Mhm.
Fontaine's and Adam from Colliers.
Okay.
So when there's things that come up like that, he emails them, and keeps us in the loop as well. But yep, he goes right to them, and they'll either say, oh, warranty, do this, or it's this, or, go from there.
Okay, all right. So in the next couple of days, expect something from me about that.
To be honest, I was under the impression when they did that final walkthrough, and I don't know if it was a month and a half ago, a couple months, we would have heard something from the MSBA saying, here's our projected date to turn the building over, but maybe there was too many things left to do, or maybe that wasn't the point of that walkthrough. I'm not sure. I just assumed that was a final inspection, and we would have had a date as to when we would take the building over, but that wasn't the case. So
Just mind-boggling to me that the school building committee has not been abreast of any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're not, and I don't want to be, as Emery said, that we have other problems with the buildings in town because they weren't checked carefully, and all of a sudden ours, and all of a sudden there's problems that now become at our win in dollar. And I'm sure on some of these, and who's keeping track of these punch list items, there's got to be a list of all that. Because what happens if they're going to look and say, no, we're not going to fix that, that's not part of the whatever, then that's the kind of thing the school building committee should be aware of.
Well,
who's
and that's
making-
happened, and that's where Chris met with everybody 6 months ago, whatever that was. And John's been really diligent about going back to Tracy and Fontaine's and Colliers and saying, no, this, look at, this is the way it was. And for example, when you walk in the front doors, there's a hole in the ceiling in the foyer, there's an access panel there. And it's been there since day one, and I keep asking when it's gonna get checked and stuff. And so John emailed back and just said, listen, the access panel hole's still there. And of course, Tracy wrote back and said, well, the panel should just be up there, get up there and look. And John said, I've been up there several times, I don't see it. So, now they're sending somebody out and they're gonna do it. So it's that sort of thing where it's kind of a back and forth because there is so many people involved. But we haven't, to my knowledge, ever been told no, or, it's sometimes, oh, that's under warranty now, you need to call them. So John's getting to know the contractors and getting to know people and things like that, to get them in and contact them himself rather than, because they're trying to pass that off to us rather than being in the middle.
When does the warranty end for the building? Or does everything have a different warranty date?
Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, the window? I mean, the building's been a while.
No, they're coming to fix that.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it kind of crazy that it's been
Already
almost
happened,
almost a year later and there's no flashing? Did something happen? Like it came off, or?
No, just the way it rained and just the wind.
That's
and
so
just-
crazy. That makes me a little nervous. Can they
I think
check all the other windows?
Not to equate it, but kind of, when you build a house, there's certain things that you don't realize until, it rains or it snows or, and then, you end up making a change or fixing it or.
But John's really
I'm
good
just more
about.
concerned of the inner kind of stuff, like people have talked to me about the public safety complex, that issues with the heating, vent, air conditioning, that is it producing what it's supposed to produce? And we need someone to verify that, yes, it is, it's sending out the air and clean air the way it's supposed to.
Oh, yeah,
That kind of
because
stuff.
yeah,
Those
because
are the things that you can't see, it's not like a leaky window or a.
yeah, no, because all of that is hooked up to an automatic logic
Right.
server that John goes in and checks every day. He can check it remotely from his house. So that type of stuff and that stuff will set alarms off, for the smallest thing. So that, as far as we know, is working correctly. And if it hasn't been, it's been taken care of.
Okay.
Yep. It's just these little kind of last minute things that are kind of just coming up.
Well, personally, I just don't want to be a member of the building committee,
Yep.
and all of a sudden have issues, and people are going to say afterward, what'd you do about it? And what am I going to go ahead and say, well, we didn't know about it, That's going to look pretty foolish, and that's not a position that I don't want to be in. And I'm sure there's other members of the committee don't want to be in that same position either. Because I know you've been taking a lot of this, and if Chris Martin's dealing with it, then why doesn't he share that with us too? That's what we have a committee for. That's what we served all the time for, to put a building together and make sure when it becomes ours and we've signed over, that we've taken care of everything that we can possibly take care of, and then the rest is ours after that, but.
Actually, you're gonna.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully we just close that. Roof project, high school.
Must be
Would you
done
like to
already.
speak to that?
Oh, yeah, it hasn't been started yet. Moving on. No, I don't want to say I'm not sure. And my contact is Steve Sullivan, who's on the 3-person committee, and he doesn't have any new updates. I met with Steve Nally a couple weeks ago in our usual monthly meeting and asked him about it, and I forget the dates, but the bid was going out. It was a 2-part bid, so there was a mechanical bid going out, and then the construction portion of the bid going out. And I want to say they both should have been opened by now, but I am not sure. So that's where we are at with the roof project.
5
Now,
days till school, right?
so they're pretty confident that we can still get the work done by the start of school, and if not, they do work on hospitals and other facilities where obviously they can't have nobody in the building as they're doing work. So it hasn't been a concern brought to us yet that they wouldn't be able to do the work with students in here, but again, we don't have any updated information.
So should we start thinking about like alternate plans? I guess, that's what my fear is, like, we don't know what's up in that roof. Right? You brought up something a few months ago that was kind of scary, like, we don't know what may have happened, like, do we have to start thinking about this stuff now?
I would say
I'm not a
yes.
roof contractor,
Well,
so
we're
I'm
not.
just gonna preface
has it
it with
been
that
assessed?
statement.
No.
But in order to, um, in order to make a bid or to, put a bid proposal in, companies came and looked at the building. They toured the building, they toured the roof, they went up, they looked at the handlers. So my assumption would be that they have navigated, all of that. However, there is always the potential that when they take a roof off, there is a challenge. I'm not, I'm not an expert, but at this point, we were looking at an August 1st start for the roof project. And if the bids have gone out and come back, then we're close to that. And again, whether or not we encounter any issues, we don't really have control over that. So we will certainly do our best, but as Adam said, what we have heard is that they can do the roof occupied. And we had asked that because we were making potential plans for moving central office out for the summer, and they said, no, you would not have to do that, that they would be working and we would be able to stay. So it wasn't brought to our attention that we would have to make any kinds of alternate plans for students, so.
So I just have a question. Was there a timeline set up in the beginning?
The original timeline was supposed to be July 8th through August 16th, I believe, was.
Because that's when you were told you couldn't do summer school over there.
So that was that was the time frame put in the proposal that we generated. That was never, like, a contractor never said, we can get it done. That was the time frame that we put in. And again, I'm not sure where the lag has come from, because the bid went out. So again, and I've said this, it goes in three parts. So there was an initial bid for the design of the roof,
Yeah.
which was one stage. So then the design came back, and then the bid had to go out to actually construct the roof,
Yeah.
and then another bid had to go out for the mechanical HVAC portion. Again, based on my conversation with Steve a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think the last two, the construction part and the electrical parts of the bid, have been completed. And I would say, I don't want to assume, but I would say they've opened them and maybe they're in negotiation now with those contractors. I'm not sure.
So who gets the feedback from?
So again, there's a 3-person committee.
Yeah.
And Steve Sullivan, the principal at the high school, is on that, and he doesn't have any updates on, there's no new information that he has.
That's not good.
So one of the things I would like to say to Mike's point is I feel like we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we don't have a plan B. Because they could open up the roof, they could find a problem. We could have 16 straight days of rain in August. Like, these are the things that happen when you're building a roof, right? So, or they couldn't put the tarps on correctly, and that's what happened to AIC. They were putting a brand new building up, putting a roof on, and they didn't secure the tarps correctly, and $18,000 worth of damage on the inside of the building. So stuff like that happens. So I feel like we need to at least have something, think about it, like, what is our plan B? Because if they go up there and they find something and we don't have anything, then school gets delayed, things happen. And I think it's one thing to have central office. You guys are what, 10, 12 people in central office? As opposed to a student body of 398 where central office is in one part of the building. Having,
On the first floor.
On the first floor, having students completely running throughout the building. As a parent, I'm concerned about it. Like, I would like to know if we run into some kind of hiccup, what are we gonna do so that kids can go to school, especially now. I don't know, this whole thing has been, it's not on any of us, it's just kind of how the town is working, but it's frustrating. And, we thought we were gonna have this done, and we don't know when they're even gonna start. So
Money was only approved at town meeting a year ago.
well, more than that, right? Like 18 months?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
I would ask that someone, whether you, Cheryl, you call, whoever you need to call, and find out what's the timeframe, and send us an email tomorrow just so we know, because people are gonna be asking us. And I would tell you, historically in this
People are
community,
asking.
there's never been a roof replaced on a school with people in the building.
And I
People
think,
gonna remember that, so.
I think we need to have a
I know,
plan
I
B.
agree with you, people do it, but it's different when parents find out that, oh, someone's working above you. No, we've never.
Well, so yeah, so I think there would be some type of internal moving around, like there, maybe having shift some classrooms to a part of the building that the roof isn't being worked on. I don't think we'd have kids in a classroom where the roof is exposed or being worked on. Again, I don't want to speculate. I would think if we're started by August 1st, that's 4 or 5 weeks. That's a pretty good time frame to have a majority of that work to be done, but I wouldn't speculate. And again, our information is coming from Steve, who's on the committee, and he has no new information. So
Right. So I just think we need to do our due diligence and come up
Yeah.
with a plan B. Like, what is our option? I mean, all hell breaks loose, roof collapse, something happens, something stupid happens, and it's always when you're not prepared that something stupid happens, and then, you've got, what's the cliche? Egg on your face? I don't know, something on your face.
So the question is there a targeted person who's supposed to receive the information?
Chris Martin?
that committee.
And who's on the committee? Steve Sullivan?
It's Steve Sullivan, it's
Steve Nally.
Steve Nally, and Glenn Sexton.
From the select board.
Mhm.
And who is Steve Nally?
He's the town treasurer, but he was on the town building. I want to say he was a building inspector or the building inspector
Okay.
back when this roof was replaced in the 90s, or did patchwork in the 90s.
Well, in 1992.
Okay, so that's when it was. Yep.
The roof collapsed. We had a ton of rain in
Okay,
August.
so that's when it
And
was, and
collapsed
he
over
was the
chemistry
building
building,
inspector,
And it was
or
a hazmat situation in my senior year.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. School started a week late.
yeah. So
All
that's
the
why he's on
carpet.
there.
Well, it just mind-boggles me that Stephen Sullivan, the high school principal, is on the committee. He runs that school, and he doesn't know when his roof has been replaced. That doesn't make any
Because
sense. Does
we're not to
make
the
any
point where,
sense.
it seems like it's not to the point where they know.
Someone has dropped the ball, because I saw the fine print in the Hampshire Gazette, I forget how long ago, about the bids, when they're opening, and I didn't read it to see what bid that was. Was it I hope it was the last one, to get the roofing company to do the work, and not the initial stuff of what you need to do, roofing company.
No, that's all done. That's already been done.
But-
Because so last week or 2 weeks ago, there were 7 or 8 mechanical contractors on site to go up to the roof and do their inspection, so that then they can produce a bid. But again, we weren't aware of that happening at the school, and they had questions that needed to be answered that John Sullivan ended up answering, but no one was aware that they were going to be there. So I don't know if when they were here, that's when they were scheduled to be here, or that got pushed back again. I'm not sure. I just know they were on site 2 or 3 weeks ago. And that's that's the most up-to-date information that we have.
So I think the idea of reaching out at least by Friday and getting you an update from a member of the roof building committee, at least with a timeline of where they are in the process.
And I would also like to see, I think we need to have some serious conversations about what our plan B is. Like, I feel strongly about that. I mean, any number of things, it's a construction project, right? Like, you would hope that it's going smoothly, but I feel like once they get in there, the roof, we know it's been a problem, right? So I just don't want us to come down to it and on August 25th, they say, hey, we're not done yet, and this or that happens, and now we're going to be faced with, potentially parents being upset. They don't want, like, what are our options? What are the expenses? What do we do so that we can at least be informed if it comes down to it? We're ready to pull the trigger. We know what our options are. We need to have a contingency plan. We need to have whatever you want to call it. I'm really great with the cliches tonight. Contingency plan, plan B, whatever. But we've got to be prepared. I just don't think that this whole thing, it's been, every time we get up to it, it's backed up, it's backed up, it's backed up. We're gonna look foolish because we've seen the writing on the wall, we're coming up, everything's being backed up. And if we don't have some kind of a record that we're prepared, that we're ready to go, school can start, whether it's however we wanna do it, whatever, so that we can go forward, so that there's no real interruption to the school year. If we can't start on time because the high school's not ready. We've gotta have that information.
So I think it starts with trying to get a definitive or much more updated timeline, and expectations around the timeline so that you have something to start planning with, right? I think that's kind of the thing that you need right now, is like, I don't even know where to begin to plan because I don't know where they're at, right?
Yep.
So we start there,
I
and
just
we can
emailed
start
Steve.
figuring out what steps we need to
Steve
get on.
Sullivan to reach out to.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, I didn't realize that was gonna be so.
I tried to move quickly, but
The next one,
Jennifer, open her mouth.
the Blizzard bags.
So I have in your folder the notification from the Department of Education that Blizzard Bags was a pilot program that DESE was implementing, that they brought together a work group, and the decision of the work group was to disband the use of Blizzard Bags, or e-learning, alternative learning days, as they're officially called, not this year, but next year. So I put the calendar in your folder so that you could take a look. If we do Blizzard Bags, we would most likely graduate, our last day of school would be as scheduled. There certainly is time in the schedule, if the committee would prefer to just move forward without Blizzard Bags, because that's gonna be, the benchmark, for 2021. As far as, moving forward, we have some options in terms of discussion about the 2021 school year, adjusting some forward dates prior to Labor Day to accommodate for the potential of snow days. So, I mean, really, it's a decision that we, as the school department, as the Granby Public Schools, we could really go either way with. We know it's coming. We also have a lot invested, and teachers have been working on them, and have become, I think, more adept with them. It would be nice to see some more work on them, but I would certainly understand if the committee decided to not have Blizzard Bags for this school year.
Robin, what's your sort of pulse, like, is it gonna cause a lot of backlash with the teachers if we decide to go against them, knowing that it's the last year of them regardless?
I think because it's the last year, a lot of teachers would say, use it, you know, still do Blizzard Bags. They, as Cheryl has stated, they've invested a lot of time in the assignments and what kind of assignments they give, and how to grade them, and you know, I mean, it is work. It has been a work in progress, I will tell you. I wasn't happy to see it when I saw it posted in an email from the Department of Ed that they were gonna do away with it, that this would be the last year. I mean, I'm gonna say, getting out that early in June makes a tremendous difference to teaching. Yes, we're in a climate-controlled building, and it doesn't get hot, and, you know, kids can breathe, but a lot of kids shut down after Memorial Day. They are done.
So my thought, and I know I would be happy to continue this
Thank you.
for next year, but we take the time to come up with a really good plan as to how we're going to not have that, and not just because Bill brought up a good point last year when we were discussing Blizzard Bags, and I'm sorry it's gonna come back to you. But you would rather have a Blizzard Bag where you can get instructional time in front of the students at that point in the year versus in June when everybody's checked out, right?
Yeah.
So how we work around that, I think is kind of what I'd like to see is a really good plan around that versus just throwing 5 more days on the year.
Mhm.
And like I said, the teachers in this building, in conversations I've had at executive board meetings with people from the high school, they have truly invested a lot of time in the types of assignments, the length of an assignment. They've just put a lot of effort into what is given and assigned and what comes back and how it's graded. So, take that into consideration.
So Robin, the only thing that will give me pause
Okay,
is the fact that folks put some work into that.
oh, yes.
However, even the fact that we're still talking about grading assignments, which was part of the conversation that we had, we were not gonna make it look like it was, you're out and we're gonna grade you. Because if I'm in the school, I'm not gonna be graded. Why am I being graded if I'm just taking a snow day? Those were the types of conversations that we already had.
Well,
So hear me out. Here's my personal thought. I'm not a fan of the snow day blizzard bag thing as it stands right now. This is a great foray into us thinking in terms of how we can make best use of technology, but we're not there yet. We're just starting our technology implementation this year in our school district. So I think we got ourselves to a point where we forgot that only 2 years ago we had no snow days, and you came 5 more extra days if it did snow 5 days, and that was it. Also, we have to remind ourselves that there are several states in the country that have year-round school. So the fact that kids are checking out, I think there may be some other underlying reasons that we may want to look into it. Not that I'm saying when I was a student I wasn't checking out when summer got closed, but it was because, teachers checked out too, because, parents checked out too, everybody checked out. So there's a reason behind that I would love to understand to keep everyone engaged as possible. Otherwise, I don't know that snow days or blizzard bags really went in the direction so far that we wanted to. Again, my only pause is, if folks really prepared and they are ready and the package is here and everything is much better than it was, that would be the only thing that I would be willing to hear and consider.
It's much more organized. The assignments are not a folder that here it is, it's October, this is in case we have a blizzard bag days, there's 5 assignments in here. Let's face it, technology is an advantage for us. We know when there's gonna be a snowstorm. We know that, tomorrow we may not have school. So a relevant assignment would be given that dealt with classroom content that was going on right then at that time. It wasn't some, practice your facts, here's 5 sheets and, you got multiplication on one side, division on the other, and this is what you gotta do. It wasn't, it's no longer that kind of a thing. You had discussions last year where the assignments needed to be more relevant, and there were guidelines for that, and the teachers stepped up. It doesn't matter what area in this school, the district, the teachers stepped up and followed those guidelines.
I'm not a fan of blizzard, but how long have you been doing it here? How long has Granby done it?
This would be the 3rd year.
This will be
Third
the 3rd
year.
year.
So,
But it's not gonna be any more after this.
so
So
I
that's
would
what
think
I'm-
if it's not gonna be any more, why even do it for the last year? If you can't do it, why do it for 1 more year? Just
Because this
I
year
mean,
was
the-
going to be an investment year with the technology coming in.
The only-
My
yeah.
concern on the other side is if we're going to invest more time into this
It
this
doesn't make
being the
sense.
last year, is that really the best place to
The other thing is, yes, DESI's made the statement, and they've had this work group, but they haven't received any feedback yet on their statement. So would the state maybe reconsider as we talk to them about blizzard bags? I don't know. So while, yes, they're saying, as of 2021, we're gonna suspend e-learning, that just came out And I can anticipate some of the superintendents that are working with Blizzard bags reaching out to DESE to, really fight for that alternative learning approach. We have kids who are in 100% digital learning. So these are kids who are in TECA, as an example, kindergarten all the way through grade 12. So I can foresee a debate about why are we allowing a charter school like TECA to be 100% online, but not allowing brick and mortar public schools to share in that innovation. So I would anticipate that this year there's going to be a little bit more discussion, and there may be a chance that we revisit that with DESE, and there may be an alternative that comes out. So it may be that we're in the beginning of a discussion and not necessarily a cut and dry, this is over. So I could see continuing for the year and then waiting to see for sure what happens with DESE in 2021.
I'm a little concerned about the perception, because I did read a couple articles on it, that it's out, there was one in Mass Live, and I think I saw one, I don't know, on some other e-news site, whatever, and I'm just a little worried about the reception. I love the Blizzard bags, but I know that it's still a court of mixed opinion, and so I'm concerned that if people are seeing that DESE is saying no, that we might have a lot of blowback from that, for people being like, well, what the heck? I'm just a little concerned about that. I'm not sure that it makes, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure.
And, Emery, I just wanted to tell you that checking out our kids has a lot to do with the time of year. The daylight savings, it's brighter outside, the spring sports. There are a lot of kids involved in soccer, t-ball, all of these, where they're out later at night. So they're coming to school dragging, and they're done.
But I
truly done.
on the flip side though,
Yeah.
there's sports year round in Granby, and
That's true.
they're pretty, and basketball games, they're indoors, it's well lit, and they can be coming home from a basketball game at 9, 10 o'clock at the high school level. You can't, and I wouldn't want to say that that's why.
That's not all of it, but
No,
that's part of it.
but I think, I think,
It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, there's a lot of things. They
Yeah.
just know the end of school is coming, and, and I just want to say I like it. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm also just thinking at this point, the only option we have is to potentially make the school year longer in the next summer. We can't start earlier now.
And
right?
you just lost your position there, mister.
No, I'm just thinking, if we were to do away with the Blizzard bags this year, because we already posted.
Right, no, the calendar is,
it says till 19th.
We can't do anything with the winter vacation, we're just stuck with, if we have snow days, we go into another
Yes.
week.
Yes.
June. And is that really the best option? I personally don't think so, but we could have a,
Well,
discussion on that.
Mike, you also brought up, when we were discussing the calendar before, because remember we were coming back a half a day on that Monday, and it got switched. You just said, well, let's hope we don't have more than 5 snow days. What if we get 6 or 7? We are going into the next week.
But they've done it before here, when we have had October 2011, they took a day.
Almost a whole week.
We were out and they took a day away from April vacation to help make up for it. So it's been done before, so we could do that. But on this calendar, and I was late, so you guys probably already talked about it, but it does say to go the 19th for the 185 days, right? So that's the following week. So what was I don't understand if we eliminate it, we've already got the calendar built with the 19th for the five snow days.
They've done that for the past 2 weeks.
right, it's always there, just in case.
Just in case.
Right.
Okay, so,
You
Some
still have it?
families and some staff may have already made plans, knowing that with the Blizzard bags in place, that they would be getting out sooner than later. I'm just saying there's something else to think about.
but at the same time, the
I completely
calendar.
hear that, but given that our school
Calendar
calendar has
says until
those
the
days in
19th.
there, I mean, if they had plans, I guess it's.
Well, there's another discussion, I think, for another time, is attendance overall. In Granby, there's a lot of families who pull their kids out of school for vacations, for the Big E, for hunting, for all sorts of reasons. We're battling this head on right now, this attendance, and this is where the state has also said to us, okay, so now we need you to do some alternative learning with these families. of these students that are missing more than 10% of the days of school. So if a student's out more than 17 days of school, we want you to do alternative learning. We want you to tutor. We want you to do online things. We want you to do this. So they're saying we're doing all this, and then on the other end, they're saying we're taking away from the blizzard bags and we're doing this. So there's a lot of demands and there's a lot of different messages being sent there from DESE and on what learning is and what learning isn't. And that's why I think it probably will get revisited, in the long run. And,
So to be honest with you, I don't think that we got to the point where we are seeing this as alternative learning. That's the thing. This is not really technology-based learning. This is not alternative learning. We don't even know if every kid still has access to technology in the way they can, do all this stuff. So we always have that package that goes with the students so that they can, they can do their homework, because we're trying to make sure everybody, is equally treated. That's all good, and I have no problem. In fact, I would be a huge supporter of alternative learning. And we've been having these conversations. I'm still sharing whatever I see here, elsewhere. That would be great. The challenge is, I think there are multiple problems in what we're discussing. One part is that, why, at one point in the year, our students or other folks are not as motivated, or they don't find as much value in being in the school. Maybe there's something to that. But the other side is, we were trying to make this something closer to the alternative learning that you're talking about. And this year, because we're starting the technology-based curriculum, we thought maybe this is the year we can really test it out, and we can try new, novel things. But if this thing is going to disappear next year, I don't know if it's really the best year to start testing things out.
I think we learned a lot as a district in how to use technology to create lessons that weren't simply just a replication of worksheets that kids would be doing on a daily basis in the classroom. With that said, my hope would be that if the state doesn't revisit this, that we can use what the teachers have created as alternatives to, in additions to instruction that's happening in classrooms. So when we talk about innovation, if we flip a classroom and the student is doing learning at home and then comes into the classroom ready to discuss, that means necessarily that the student has had access at home, that they've done either an experiment, a digital experiment, or participated in a lecture, watched a lecture, whatever that is. Then they come in and they're ready to discuss. We're not using the technology in the classroom. We're actually putting the technology away and having that face-to-face conversation, that instruction, that Socratic circle, for example. My hope would be that if they went away, we've had all of this experience that we can capitalize on and actually continue to shift our instruction in innovative ways. So I don't think it's a wasted effort. I would hope that we would continue it because we see the value in offering that kind of instruction to students, because in fact, when students go, whether they're going to career, whether they're going to the military, whether they're going to corporate or college, they are going to be learning online. They're going to be reading manuals online. They're going to be watching videos online. They're going to do their professional development online. They've got to have these skills. They are not always going to have someone standing in front of them, direct instruction, stand and deliver. That's not always going to be the case. So I think the work we've done is helping prepare them for that. And I don't want to lose sight of that was one of the reasons that we began, because students came back to us instead and said, we haven't had these opportunities as high school graduates in Granby. So I would like to see them continue, regardless of whether it's a blizzard bag day or not, but that teachers actually have these in their toolbox to use to keep kids engaged, to shift the kind of instruction that's happening in classrooms.
And it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be a
based on
blizzard bag,
laptop or
right? Exactly.
It can be two-page reading that they discuss
Exactly.
afterwards.
Exactly. No. So that's why I would, I would say continuing has benefits because I don't see it as just simply a blizzard bag experience. I see it as a direction that we'd like to go with kids so that they have the opportunity and experience of learning independently. And
because honestly, this was a learning challenge for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
Because we don't know how the students are benefiting. This is a contractual thing for us too, because it basically every day counts towards the 185. So we don't know how we are engaging our teachers in the process. We don't know that. Then we started talking about technology, and it became, okay, are we now not doing the right thing because we don't have technology available to every single student? So we created a lot of dimensions around it. It was part of our learning. But, I don't know that the state knew what was really offering when they came up with the idea, or they okayed it for, a pilot, which is not unusual, but, it's putting us in a situation where now we have to make a decision, and, then if you do, then if you don't type of thing, because everybody has by now their opinions. It may be early summer, it may be, folks not checking out, it may be, a variety of reasons. So for the majority of the experience that I observed, my opinion is based on that, right or wrong. And, I may be in the minority, that's fine. But one thing that I think links what you both shared, there is a lot of effort put in there, and that is indeed connecting to something that we want to do, not because there is a blizzard bag, but it's part of the future learning, then I would like to hear about that, so my decision can be based at least on something a little different.
And I will say from my experience, again, he went from second to third grade, but the blizzard bags I saw between year 1 and year 2 were night and day. Year 2 was just so much better. I could actually see what he was working towards. He could see what he was working towards, and it was wrapped up with a nice little, we did this on day 1, this on day 2, all the way up, and then at the end of it, we did a class group talk about what you learned, and you finished off the job that way. It was just one step. It was a building block through the whole thing. And it talked about math, and it showed him how to create charts, and we had to do reading and do some analysis. And it was actually really, really interesting.
It seems that we did maybe it's the way they learn. It seems like we had better success in the elementary school. And I'm just speaking from one individual's experience, but also her connection with others, that it seemed to have been a little more challenging at the high school level, because they really thought, at least that circle thought, that now they had more work than they would have had if they had gone to school and they just walked away with a simple homework. Now they had to devote the day to catch up with a lot of things, and there was an expectation when they returned to school that there was a quiz on it, or there was some, scoring on it. But what you're sharing about the elementary is something that I heard as well, that, they like that structured approach, and they benefit from it, and they learn on their own as well.
Well, the other thing is with this year, and I'm trying to think back to make sure I'm saying this correctly, the first year, as a parent, I was on him to make sure he got it done by the end of the day, and after all of the discussions and everything else, it seemed like this year, they weren't even looking at that stuff for a few days. They just didn't even talk about it. They just let parents get through what they needed to get through, and then maybe it was a few days later. And his stuff was done within a day or two anyways, but it was already back in the package, but there was never any, I didn't see any check mark or anything else, but when they got to that extra point, he was ready to do that piece. And I think that's the
So
way to
in the junior, they had given a blizzard bag, they had a due date. So if they couldn't get all the work done, they had a week to turn in the assignments. I didn't feel it was any more than what they would have gotten in class. That's how I felt this year.
I think that was
wasn't
part of our
anymore.
learning, and one of the,
Yeah.
a lot of the feedback we heard was the amount of work. It
Right.
just seemed overwhelming. So I
Yeah.
think teachers adjusted very quickly to that feedback, and worked together to understand that.
And then the
Um,
response time.
and then adding the
like-
response time so that,
Right, so
Yeah.
even if we emailed and said, we can't find, because we had to go to the portal, we couldn't find certain things, they would respond quickly.
I had nobody in the school
I-
district.
Your experience was the first year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the first year, yeah, my hearing from parents and some of the teachers, it was overwhelming that the kids, an assignment that maybe should have been 20 minutes was 3 hours.
Right.
Because they were putting,
But what-
we're going above and beyond, but that's kids in Granby. You know, and it's particular kids also. So the next year, there was more tweaking and adjusting and, you know, explaining to kids, well, you know, this shouldn't take you 4 hours. Every year it got better.
Statistically, how many blizzard bag days were there in year one, and how many in year two?
Let's see, 4.
I'll say 4.
4.
4 in year 1 and 3 in year 2? Or 2
Two or
and 3?
two, I think, last year.
2.
Only two.
Yeah. We had more delays, believe it or not.
Yes.
We had quite a few delayed
early
openings or
dismissal.
early dismissals.
That first year, though, it really did feel like that was in the blizzard bag was stuff that was stuffed in there in September, and it was not really thought out as something that was gonna be relevant in March.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it was just, you know, the multiplication on one side, the division on the other side, you have these problems, and there's 5 pages of that. This year it was maybe a page of reading, and you answer these questions, and you do these graphs, and it took a few hours to get through. But it wasn't required to be done by the next day, and it actually made sense as you went through it as a standalone project that you could do at any point in the year.
Yeah. I'm primarily intrigued because it may be a good way to test how the first year of technology in the high school may work out. Because I was speculating, but I'm thinking that this year the way they started learning in this school may have contributed to the way they were connecting with,
Absolutely.
you know, with how they had to do that one pager and then learn something else, and they understood that concept with a lot more ease because.
Well, if you remember, when we talked about last year, we talked about this going a lot deeper than just the blizzard bag assignments, that it was gonna be how we're learning. That was a discussion, was that learning needed, all around, needed to become relevant, and it needed to become meaningful, and it needed to become full participation. And you know, we had a lot of great feedback this year from parents about students that couldn't wait to get into their blizzard bags on the snow days. And you know, I think, you know, moving forward, it's a learning tool that even if it doesn't stay blizzard bags, it can become something more. And like I said, for students that are absent, and this has so much deeper ramifications than just this. You know, if a student's out for a day, how can we change that learning as well, rather than just take the textbook home and do pages 23 through 30 or whatever, you know? So that I think there's so much more of an opportunity here to look at this and be able to say, we've come this far, and let's continue to really have these discussions. And we had a lot of discussions. I spent a lot of time last year, you know what I mean? My whole beginning of the school, if they heard me say relevant and meaningful one more time, you would have got me duct taped to the flagpole probably. But that's what it became, you know, and I think that's what we need to do. So I'd like to see us be able to continue on that road, you know, just one more year to see what happens with the state end of it, but also to see what we can get out of it, to see where, if we can get a student that wants to pursue something on their own or do something, that piece of it, you know, as well. So that would be my recommendation, is to just try moving forward, and to give, you know, if parents have feedback that it wasn't, or that there were issues, to let the administrators know so that we can bring that forward to the staff and we can have those conversations.
Did we do a survey on them again? At the end of the year?
Pardon me?
Did we do a survey on them again? A second year survey? We had talked about it, I don't know.
About it, but I don't know. That
I would have to go back
I
and
didn't
check.
know when-
We had a lot more discussions here with students in class
Yeah.
over them. Like, so there were class discussions about what they thought.
I
of
was
it.
looking for like the parent feedback,
Right,
where we
right.
read through a lot of the
I
comments and
recall
stuff.
taking one.
I know, I think there is.
Did you just do it at the high school? Because I don't remember.
I might not have done the staff one.
Okay.
I might have only done the parent one.
I'd be curious to see what the thoughts were for year 1 versus year 2. Also, I mean, does it feel like we're gonna? I don't even know how to ask my question. Never mind.
So I guess my question is, do we need to vote on this? Like, we have to
I mean, I would say no, the calendar is built on the premise of blizzard bags. So currently, we would be moving forward with blizzard bags.
What action is DESI looking for?
I think DESI would be looking for us not to build the calendar with e-learning or alternative learning built into it
This year or
next year.
Okay, so
Yeah, the premise, DESI's memo was that beginning in 2021, we would not be having alternative learning days.
In fact, even the last 2 years and going on into our third year, we always built in the snow day.
Absolutely, yep. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is, you know, if we get into 10 or 15 days, to your point, you know, we have a roof blow off or something, we may be looking at some alternatives, and whether that
Or
is.
the town loses power.
Exactly. We have that ice storm that we were without power for 10 days. You know, we have always built in emergency days. And so, like I said at the beginning, if you decided right now that we were going to not do blizzard bags, the calendar certainly has notified people as such. But if, you know, it was built on the premise of starting after Labor Day with a shortened instructional time, more compact, if you will, for students, with the use of blizzard bags. So I don't think a vote is needed. It was built on that premise.
Okay, and then I think just from my perspective, if next year when we do the calendar, we can look at a couple different
Yes.
ways to.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Standing report, do you have a superintendent report?
So I wanted to say thank you to Marcus Barron. Marcus has been in my office 3 times to ask questions about his role and what he can do. He's an exciting student to have, so thank you for answering those questions for him. And as I said, we'll be meeting on Mondays prior, so if you have anything that you would have questions about, make sure you let me know, so I can have Marcus canvass and ask his peers, and I'm sure he would be happy to do so. My only report is to welcome Jacqueline Coretta as my administrative assistant. Jacqueline comes to us from Chicopee Public Schools as the administrative assistant to the athletic department, and a nurse leader as well, nurses. So comes with a wealth of experience, and I tried to take a selfie, but I looked really bad. So I'm going to introduce her tonight.
It wasn't about you, Cheryl.
What's that? I know it's not about me, but she looked great. I was like, I can't send that to the school committee. It's awful. So I said, I nixed that idea. Sorry. You looked fabulous. But so anyway, we welcome Jacqueline. And please feel free.
This is a bad first day because our cameraman is not there. So
Yeah, you can't. Oh, there you go.
Direct illusion at us. There you go. So everybody knows who you are.
So you'll be hearing from Jacqueline on my behalf often, so welcome. And the next person, although we will introduce all new staff probably August 23rd, we have hired Beth Craven, who comes to us from Athol Royalston and formerly South Hadley Public Schools, as our curriculum coordinator and technology integration coordinator.
What's August 23rd?
27th. I keep saying the 23rd. It's the 27th. I apologize. So she will start with us on August 1st, and we'll meet the district ILT, which is East Meadow and Granby Junior Senior High School ILT combined. So she will meet us all, and then she will begin her work in curriculum and technology integration. And that's all I have.
Okay. I guess next it's Adam's turn.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this real short. So, 19, seriously though, 19, I'll be working on over the next month or so, to close out. We did purchase our technology. It's going to be here Thursday, I believe.
Did we purchase what we expected to purchase? So
Yes.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay.
That was just kind of a side note. So 19 I'll be working on to close out. 20, I'm going to work with Nancy to get into LBA, which is our accounting system, but we're already up and running with purchase orders, and teachers got their orders in to Natalie and Anne Marie here, so those orders will be coming in. So FY20 is good for now. Chartwells, I'm working with them on end of year stuff. We got our sander in for the truck that was approved at town meeting, and our lawnmower in. Those two items, I don't know if you guys remember, Chris helped us out and put it to a town meeting vote that was above and beyond our budget. Came in at 21.5. We have a few dollars left over, a couple $1,000s left over, so I've already been in conversation with him to use it, and he said as long as it is in the area of what was approved at town meeting and he okays it, then we're good to go. So the plan right now is to purchase a landscape/equipment trailer, in case we need to get the lawnmower, snow blowers, any type of equipment service, we can bring it somewhere, or if we have to pick up equipment or desks like we did last year from somewhere that were donated to us. So it's just good to have a trailer. In the past, we've used the towns, so it's just good to have on board. So I forwarded that to Chris, just waiting to hear back from him if that's acceptable under that article.
Where's this stuff all being stored? Like, do we have a shed or do we need a
Yep,
shed?
so the lawnmower is in the garage behind like the basketball courts on the far, like the student parking lot side of the high school, and the sander for right now is right by the huge generator over here.
Okay, so we don't need it?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Other than that, as of July 1st, we kind of inherited our own facilities department. Actually, it's been working out really, really well. They're flying through stuff. Anything else? We walked around for the door grant today, the roof, facilities, I
I have a
think.
question for you, Very- hopefully quick, if not, please.
No.
What we were gonna do, there was this award that was,
Yeah, the budget award, yep. So we have 90 days from the town approving our budget. So what was that, May?
13th, no,
June.
June 13th.
June 13th,
Yeah.
yep. So 90 days to submit that to the ASBO, which is the one who does that. So a lot of that work is already done. So it doesn't take much time for a small district like us to compile that work. A lot of it is all budget, but a lot of it is kind of writing and getting pictures and stuff like that and kind of compiling it, which I will do once like end of year stuff is over, which should be by the end of this month, like middle of next month.
two things on that, just the subcommittee.
Mhm.
If any help need, I don't
Yeah.
remember who is
Mhm.
on that anymore, but
Mhm.
that may be one.
Yep.
The other, if we can use it as a shell for next year as opposed
Yeah.
to waiting, and it becomes
Yeah,
something that we
certainly.
can
Mhm.
deliver to the people
Mhm.
even before
Yep.
we get to the town meeting, that would be
Yep.
great.
Certainly.
So the other, the question I wanted to ask, I just want to make sure, last year we ran into an issue with closing out the prior year.
Mhm.
It went way into December, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that, we took back whatever lessons we needed to learn.
Yeah.
And we're ready for this year when we go to close it out.
Mhm.
Get those reports out.
Mhm. The biggest thing last year was timing, right? It was me coming in July 1st and trying to learn everything and also trying to file this final report on things I had no idea about. So last year it was 99% timing. And the rest was communication, and I think we're better off in both those areas this year. So I don't foresee any problems in filing that thing, on time. So.
I just want to make sure, the communication part,
Mhm.
is, especially that
Yeah.
we understand what
Mhm.
we're talking about, what we're asking
Mhm.
for, so we can close it out.
Yep. So I went to a workshop a couple weeks ago for end of year. They have them every year, and the files aren't even ready yet to be like worked on from DESI. So they'll notify us as soon as they're ready. So
Okay.
I think that's it. Yes, that wasn't short, but
That was pretty short.
well,
I think we're-
compared
we're
to
asking questions.
yeah, compared to
Very
yes,
short.
yes. I think I'm all set.
All right, CES, did you make the meeting?
Yes, I did. Bill Deal said that he was gonna reach out to the school committees to meet with us in, actually all the locations. He wants to get out this year to meet with everyone. Then we had a presentation on the Title III consortium, and they're going to reapply for a grant this year to help with the smaller schools for English learning. It's the English learning and training for individuals for teaching. So he's going to reapply for another grant this year.
Sounds about right.
Yep. No, it's long. Because they're going, like, we are going through policy changes, and they had questions, and they were going through, so it took a long time due to questions.
Nobody asked where Mike was, right?
They didn't miss me. I don't think we have anything else. I think we are, well, the West Street, building committee, is that closed or?
That's what we're gonna reach
I
out for.
hope so.
Okay, so that was different from the new, so it's the same committee?
Same
Yeah.
community.
Okay, that's what I thought. So there's nothing new there, nothing new on any of these other ones right now.
I have a quick comment. I see my name on every single subcommittee.
Yes,
I'm not sure that was the
that's
case.
awesome.
No, but
You raised your hand for all of them.
Yeah. You don't wanna be chair? We'll get you.
That's a new expression I learned, be voluntold,
Yes.
that you were gonna use it.
Well,
So
that's-
I
Nice
have-
job, Jacqueline.
So I have Emery on the West Street Building Committee, but not on policy. The policy committee should be, it's the two gens, the gen
Yep.
squared, keeping that
Yep.
together, so that I'm the only one that's right on that
Can
one.
you go over that again?
Sure, on the policy subcommittee, it should be gen squared, so
Jen.
Bartos and Mallet. And then budget and finance,
It's
I have Mr. Petrus and Jen
Mallet.
Mallet.
Who's Jen?
Jen
Jen
Mallet.
Mallet.
No.
And then community relations, I have myself and Emery.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
fine.
that was right.
That one's right.
One,
The other thing you put in the folder that, I don't know if we need to see the
Yes.
agenda, but I did want to bring it up because I know time is the thing, it's the MASC.
Joint conference.
Yeah.
Is anybody interested in attending the joint conference this year?
Yeah, I can't do that. I'm gonna be at another conference.
So I had a ball last year, crashing parties.
Oh my God, he was like, I could see him. He was just like this lone Granby person.
I met so many people, I just sat at their table and started talking.
It's
with them,
awesome.
having dinner with them. It was fantastic.
And they still want people from Granby?
Yeah, they actually said hi to me the next day too.
So you go again, Mike?
Yeah, I'm gonna go again.
Cool. That's good.
This is the November one, right?
But I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not.
November 6th?
Yeah. It's, I
Who,
can't do
who else
it.
wants to go?
So you're going, Mike?
Yeah, it was a really good experience.
I can't
learned a
take
lot.
time off from.
They, by
Yeah.
the way, they
Work to
already
go.
have their
That's
topic.
me.
Probably was
Yeah.
on that thing anyway, right?
Yep.
The topics. I'm like, how did you call all these people to arrange, sessions with them? It's like pages.
Mm-hmm.
I learned an awful lot. It made me look at some things that I just never thought of before. It made me look at them and say, wow, I never saw it. And then it also had me look at things I thought I knew before, but I got it from a different perspective. So.
Yep. So just Mike at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they expecting answers immediately? When is the
Well, we
early
get
bird?
pre-registration.
But it would expire July 15th.
Sorry. Yeah, we extend that.
Okay.
Sorry.
everybody else misses that too.
I said that was on camera, wasn't it?
Sure was.
We always beg forgiveness, and they are very polite in telling us, oh, no worries, we'll give you the early bird discount. So if anybody else is interested and would like to attend, if you could let us know by Monday, that would be great. And then we can register and get an early bird discount, which is what we like to do, so.
There's also, in the letters here, there's a list of the sessions. Maybe just wants to take a quick look at that, if that helps with the phone.
And I will say, you don't have to go all 3 days, or all 2 days, both days. You can pick and choose a day. That's certainly within the wheelhouse. I've even been known to sneak a few people in on my hip, so that always works too. I said that on camera too, didn't I?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure did.
So we need an executive session?
No.
All right.
I'll move to adjourn.
Are you second?
Second.
Jeez.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.